Okay, good evening everyone. It's 7 o'clock, so we'll start the meeting. Thanks to everybody who's made it here tonight. I know the traffic is quite bad. So I'd just like to remind everybody before we start that tonight's proceedings are being live streamed and recorded for publication on the Council's website. So moving swiftly on, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillors Spate, Fish, Manoir, Day and Sue Hodgson, the Place ONS Housing Tenant Representative. Are there any other apologies for absence? Nope. Okay, thank you. So item 2 is to approve the minutes of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny meeting on the 9th of October 2025. I wasn't at that meeting, so I'm relying on other corporate members. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? Nope. Okay, so in that case we can take it that the minutes are approved. Are there any declarations of interest? There's none from me. Councillor Cathy Kent.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't know if I need to declare that I work at the Treetops Learning Community, as it's there's an SEN report in a proposal in the budget papers.
Thank you. I think that's noted anyway, so thank you for raising that. Are there any other declarations? No, thank you. Item 4 is unplanned scrutiny items and members' right of reference. I've not been made aware of any items, so it will take it that there are none. Item 5. So before we get on to the actual saving proposals, I'll run through the format of the meeting so that we're all clear. The meeting will begin with the Leader of the Council, Councillor Worrell, giving us an update and general report on how we've got to this stage. Councillor Abbas, do you know where you're going? Yep, okay, thank you. That will be followed by an update from Dr. Smith as Chief Executive Commissioner, and then the 151 officer will present an update also. We'll then move on to the savings. Each saving will be taken in turn. The portfolio holder will present them, and I'll ask if there are any questions. Chairs and vice chairs of the relevant ONS committee will be invited to go first, and then we'll open up to questions from corporate overview and scrutiny members. I mean, we do have quite a big agenda, a lot of savings to get through, so you know, I will be flexible. If members think that there is a particularly pressing issue, or they realise there's a question they'd like to ask and they didn't have time to raise it through their chair or vice chair, then obviously I'm happy to take it. But it's not an attempt to stifle debate or question or anything like that. It's just that we have a lot of savings. I want to get through them as quickly as possible and allow corporate ONS members to scrutinise them as well as they can. So without further ado, I think Councillor Worrell, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for agreeing to hold the budget scrutiny meeting through your committee tonight. This has worked well over the last 2 years and gives all scrutiny members the opportunity to look at the proposals, comment and make considered recommendations to Cabinet. All local councils across England face huge pressures as demand for services outstrips income, and Thurrock is no exception. But let's be brutally honest, this council faces further difficulties due to the enormous debt we inherited. Thurrock has taken some difficult decisions over the past few years since going into intervention in September 2022. We were a failing council in a number of ways, but not least in our ability to manage our finances as part of this budget setting process. Far too many years we made no significant savings, if any, and this failure was buried and just set us up for the financial disaster that followed. Although we have made significant progress and made some very difficult decisions and changes how we operate, we are still in debt, and it is still an unmanageable debt. The debt still continues to be overseen by the Head of Finance and 3 government-appointed commissioners. This council continues to spend more than we can afford, and as a Cabinet we are committed to make further spending reductions to help meet the requirements set out by the government as part of their intervention. These proposals before you tonight are difficult. It has taken a great deal of work to get these to you for comment and early consideration. We have a commitment to save £14 million this year, and £14 million we will save. These saving proposals are going to require all 49 of us to dig deep to meet the budget requirements. Yes, they are difficult, but I can assure you some of the others on the table were far, far worse. As we start this process tonight, I want to remind you that we start each year in deficit, with the government contributing over £60 million this financial year, just to make sure we can sustain a management budget to continue to deliver services and pay the staff who work here. The council has done well. We have not shirked our responsibilities and have delivered savings in excess of 40 million since 2023. We have protected services as much as possible, but it's getting increasingly difficult. We still need to deliver 41 million over the next 3 financial years. We can do this 2 ways. You can do this by squeezing budgets and slicing bits of funding from here and there, but as we all know, that doesn't deliver the services our communities need. A salami slice off of a budget risks a major problem for another service elsewhere in the council or our community. Or you can make choices in line with a plan to deliver meaningful change. That's why this year you will see options where we are going to transform our council through a guided by a roadmap. This roadmap has already had considerable preparation work completed and agreed at SLT and Assistant Director level, and we are now confident that we are ready to move forwards with it. This approach means we can maintain the crucial services people require while making the changes we know we need to in a way that makes sense and uses every £1 of taxpayers' money well. My Cabinet has asked officers to bring this to you now, early in the budget setting process, so that everyone can understand our approach, ask questions and make suggestions in the face of hard choices. I've always said that we will be open and transparent, and we will, and that will be the case throughout the agreement and the delivery of these savings. Our roadmap approach allows us to keep a grip on our savings and monitor our progress. We will have increased focus where we need it so that we deliver for our residents. Progress of the transformation of the council has been built into PMAF reporting. There is no hiding place, and hard decisions will not be dodged if delivery or timelines slip. Before I hand over to Dr. Dave Smith for his advice, I want to remind all councillors that we shouldn't kid ourselves. This is hard, and we are here tonight to make some hard choices. We must deliver the savings required year on year. As in previous years, Cabinet are always happy to consider good, thought-through options, but we cannot dodge the tough decisions. Between now and budget setting, if committee members or individual councillors want to recommend a removal of a proposal for policy reasons, they must also propose deliverable alternatives to ensure a balanced budget can be achieved to allow for proper evaluation of the new options. We look forward to working with you and make sure that we do what is right to meet our commitments to the government and to the community we are all elected to serve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Could I now invite Dr. Smith to say a few words?
Thank you, Chair. What I wanted to get across to the members is on behalf of all 3 commissioners. Those of you who've followed the 5 reports that we've made to the Secretary of State since intervention started, you will understand that we have applauded the Council's progress on a number of fronts, particularly with regard to improvements to its governance and decision-making and the improvements to its leadership. And we've seen that in all the administrations that have been in power working alongside us since 2022. It is nevertheless the case, though, that despite all the efforts of the Council and despite all the improvements that the Council's made, that it remains heavily indebted. And the best way I can remind members of the extent of this indebtedness is for you to understand that on the first day of each financial year, the Council is already minus £70 million. And it works from that basis. And if the Council was not receiving exceptional financial support from the government, we would be bankrupt still. So every decision the Council makes is not about a choice to spend the money somewhere else. It's a choice about how not to spend money in order to ensure that the council can meet its statutory requirement to balance its books and, most critically of all, to act in the interest of best value, which it has a responsibility to do in law. As the leader has already said, in addition to that indebtedness, the council is still currently operating, spending £7 million on its services, more than it earns in its income coming into the council, once you set aside the exceptional financial support. So even on a year-by-year basis, the council is still not balancing its books effectively. All this adds pressure in the decisions the council has to make. I want all members to understand the cumulative effect on the council of the savings it's had to achieve. I appreciate and applaud, as I've said, the fact that each year, each administration here has been responsible in making decisions on an annual basis to balance the books. And those, as again the leader has said, in the first years from 2023 has amounted to 40 million, and a further 41 million is required by 2028. It is not simply just a matter of year-on-year savings. It's the accumulative effect that those savings are having on the viability of the council's services, and most critically, on the ability to find savings that have minimum impact on the public. So each year it gets harder, each year it becomes more and more difficult to find the savings. And it's only through the hard work of officers of the council, supported and guided by the elected members of the council, that the progress that the council's made to date has been achieved. But be very clear, this needs to continue for next year and the following years in order to meet the targets set out in the medium-term financial plan and agreed with the government as part of the plan for Thurrock's recovery. All the actions that are being proposed are set out as proposals as best the council can do to achieve the savings and minimise the impact. In your papers tonight, there is an item of a proposal that's now been withdrawn. During the period since the papers were published, a reassessment has taken place of the proposal that related to street lighting. That's PLA 07-2026, which is under the place list. That item has been withdrawn, is no longer a proposal as a budget saving, because it was felt to be disproportionate in the exercise of trying to operate that against the level of savings which are relatively minimal. So that particular item has been withdrawn. Finally, Chair, if I might say, that in considering, scrutinising and ultimately in the Cabinet making decisions on the saving proposals, all members of the Council need to have at the forefront of their mind the unavoidable nature of the Council's financial position and the need to make the savings. This is not a matter of if, it is a matter of how. And I would encourage all members of the Council to engage in the debate with a clear understanding that we must achieve the savings, and most important of all, that the savings proposals that go forward and are ultimately agreed by the Cabinet with advice from Scrutiny must be achievable, they must be fair, and they must balance the budget back to the requirement by the time the budget's set by Council in February. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, you've actually prompted me. On page 15, Appendix 1, there is actually a saving shown, CS042026. I believe that has been placed on there in error. It's not actually a proposed saving. So it's just for clarification, if you're referring to that and you're wondering why there isn't a paper on that saving, it's because it's not being put forward as a saving. Okay, In that case, we move on to the 151 officer. Dawn Calvert, would you like to make an introduction?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just explain a little bit about next steps, maybe. So, following this evening's meeting, and considering the recommendations of the committee, the savings will go forward in the draft budget and MTFS report that will be included in the draft budget and MTFS report that will go to December Cabinet. And we'll be doing the same as we did last year. There'll be a recommendation to refer that budget and MTFS report back to a meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in January. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move on to the saving proposals. They start on page 17 of the agenda, and the first one, they relate to the adults and health portfolio. As I say, they start on page 17, and the first one is ASCH/01/2026, review of continuing healthcare and section 117 aftercare arrangements, and it's Councillor Hooper to present that one.
Thank you, Chair. So basically, we're looking at moving some funding from our own budgets into health budgets. This is something that we've been doing for a number of years successfully. But, you know, and we're looking at the high complex needs end, the expensive services that we currently provide. We're going to do this by actually kind of training some of our staff to be to know how to actually go through the process of accessing the 117 money. We think we're looking at recruiting 2, and those 2 members of staff will act as kind of mentors, and will train other staff and monitor other staff on how they're actually assessing our clients. So we meet the criteria where the funding will come from health. Is it right if I move on to the next saving, Chair?
I think we're going to take them individually rather than en bloc, and so we will get through them as quick as possible. I think if we take them en bloc, but we're going to be referring back and forwards. We're going to be shuffling through pages as people want to ask questions on specific pages. So we will go through them as quickly as possible. At this stage, I'm going to defer to the Chair and Vice Chair of the Adults and Health O&S Committee, which is Councillor Rigby and Councillor Day. Councillor Day is absent. Councillor Rigby, do you have any questions on that saving proposal?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Firstly, the continuing healthcare framework, is that a safe model? Have we got the income? Is that going to be viable for the period of this saving? And what would happen if that does decrease or change in any way?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. As you probably know, there is a real increase in high complex need cases. And we think very creatively about how we can provide support to those people with high complex needs. There is no specific change in the pipeline to this funding. So I'm not anticipating any changes in eligibility in the CSC, in the CHS fund.
Thank you. So I then would like to ask about staff. There's plans for 2 new full-time staff, relatively high salaries, which with recruitment costs and on costs are probably going to exceed 6 figures independently. You mentioned that they will be employed as mentors as well. Is there any thought process of training up existing staff to save those recruitment costs at all?
Thank you, Councillor. If I didn't mention it before, you picked me up on it. Yes, these staff will be training and supporting the staff so they can actually go through the right processes so we can actually claim the benefit. You are right, 2 members of staff can't make the level of savings that we need to make. It needs to be a team effort in terms of those staff being trained and supported.
Just to clarify though, you would definitely need to recruit them externally. There's no way of training existing staff to do this initial role at all?
I'm led to believe that is the case.
Thank you. With regards to monitoring the outcomes, the KPIs, does the council have direct access to those figures?
Sorry, I'm unclear which KPIs you're talking about.
So when you're benchmarking the outcomes from using the CHC framework, it says there that you are monitoring the achievements of successful outcomes, and this information is provided to finance. I'm just wondering, is there sort of direct, easy access to monitor the KPIs, or do you have to get them via a third party?
We created a new system at the back end of April to improve our monitoring, because I actually think it was one of the weaknesses of the council. And I know that we were working on this before the CQC inspection. I think it's something the CQC inspection picked up around our monitoring, and data could be somewhat better. That work was actually underway, and we've now got in place a system that actually provides better data, and that can be provided on a monthly basis.
Thank you. I think that's it for that section. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Are there any questions from members of the Corporate O&S Committee on this particular proposal? Councillor Cockshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Just where we are at the moment, do you know how many staff we have already capable within the council that can fill out to complete the CHC forms? Because I know from my time as cabinet member that was an extremely complicated task, so I understand why the need to perhaps bring some people in. But I'm just curious on where we are now with the current level.
My understanding is we've only got one.
Does that answer your question? Yep. Any other questions on this proposal? Okay, I've got a couple myself. The figures are quite precise, aren't they? They're not like ballpark figures. We're talking, it's not so much, if you're reducing a service, it's easy to come up with such a precise figure because it just won't be there anymore. But this is, as I understand it, we're basically going to try and ensure that we get as much money as we can out of the NHS for care that they should be funding. How can those figures be so precise?
Okay, they're currently modelled on what we're already delivering, and that's why they're so precise. But I'm actually confident we may do slightly better than the figures are actually in this report.
Thank you for that. And final question from me is, these savings are dependent on us being able to recruit. Bearing in mind, you know, it's quite challenging to recruit adult and children's social care practitioners as it is, because there's a shortage of those practitioners. We're a council that's not going to be here in 2 years' time. We're bankrupt to boot. How confident are you that we will be able to recruit to those positions? Because if we don't, then no savings fall flat on their face.
So I'm told they're contract staff. I believe they're already I kind of identified and put into place. So I feel confident that we can recruit them.
So you saying that they're already in place?
So there's a market here for people who work in this area. They're not looking for permanent long-term employment. These are not permanent employment posts. These are 2-year fixed-term contracts, and there are people that are in the market that look for this kind of work. And part of their key function is to train the staff and upskill the staff here so we can make this sustainable in the longer term.
Okay, thank you. I have a question, Councillor
Sorry,
Costa.
just as a clarification, and I'm sorry to bring it back to about the staff. I just note that we mentioned this in the budget last year, that we were looking to hire 2 full-time staff for CHCs. Going back to my answer saying we've only got 1 on staff, so is that saying that wasn't able to be done last year then?
We have 1 person that's dedicated to work in this way. Remember, they are joint assessments. There's not 1 staff work on their own. They work jointly already with NHS colleagues, and they have delivered what we've achieved so far. Because the numbers are continue to get, there's always going to be a pipeline there. We feel that we can now take it to that next level of increasing the volume of people that could access this, which is how we generate the additional saving.
Okay, Councillor Moldoni, you've indicated to speak. Just to remind, I am going to take individual questions, but you know, if people have got questions, they should really have been fed by the chair or vice chair of that committee. But okay, if you want to put your question.
Okay, sorry, Chair. When I checked that in the meeting, I wasn't told that that was the case in our pre-meet. Okay, so the CHC saving proposal, which would strengthen the Council's ability to identify cases eligible for NHS funding and to ensure timely reviews. I don't think there's any question about whether we should pursue it or not, particularly in lieu of the windfall that we had from this work last year, which contributed to the underspend in the department. So the approach aligns with best practice nationally, and it's not in itself a concern. However, it does rely on a continued availability of a strong CHC pipeline. When I asked the director about this at our recent overview and scrutiny committee, he did say that the pipeline can only be predicted for 3 to 4 months, cannot guarantee CHC levels in 2 to 3 years, and the CHC forecasting mechanism is not yet operational, but I think Councillor Hooper has actually said that it is operational. I may have misunderstood that. Please correct me if that's so. And there's also a follow-on question, but as we're going one by one that links to rebasing, I'll wait until we come to that question. So those are my concerns basically about how robust is the prediction of ongoing income, but I think the saving in principle is sound, and it certainly is something we should be pursuing.
Chair, do you want me to address that question? If I could just quickly address the question, I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but for members to be aware, what I was trying to say in scrutiny the other week was we know there's a pipeline of people. That's not the issue. We have an aging population. We have increasing complexity. That's not the challenge. What I said about the 3 to 4 months is as far as identifying individuals that are going to be going through continuing health care, we look at that kind of timeline because it tends to be people who tend to be generally towards reaching the later stage of their life. So that's what I'm saying, as far as being specific about the people we're identifying, there's that kind of trajectory because that's the stage they get to. And that's when most people end up in continuing healthcare, the numbers. But there's always going to be the volumes going through because we have an aging population, we have increasing complexity.
Okay, I think we'll move on now to the next saving. I mean, obviously it's not for me to sort of direct what ONS committees do, but as we move through these savings, if there is a particular saving, particularly one which is, you know, a significant saving, yes, we're here to sort of probe it tonight, but if you need more time or you feel that this is something that you would like to spend a bit more time looking into, I am told there is time before Cabinet meets to consider the final proposal. There is time to bring individual savings to your committees and probe those in more detail. So, sure, ask questions, but if you're still not satisfied at the end of that, there is time for you to bring them to your committee for a more in-depth focus if you want to. Okay, so the next saving is on page 19, and that's Councillor Hooper again, please.
Thank you, Chair. What we're looking to do is to try and move some money from the public health grant that meets the criteria of public health grant into providing some of our services. That's the primary approach. So I'm just going to leave it there. We're looking at saving 750k on taking that approach.
Councillor Rigby, did you have any questions on this one? I should have said, sorry, this is page 19, wider detriments of health, public health grant.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, please. Thank you. So I can see it's a straightforward transfer, but my question is, what is the benefit of moving it out of public health into adult social care? Because public health do a lot of work in reducing health inequalities anyway. So what do you feel that you can do better with the money, or what will you be using the money for that you feel that is better within adult social care than within public health?
It's a real cross-the-council approach, not just adult social care, and I think that's what it brings. And you know, that's in partnership with our social care and our social care staff, and I think that changes the approach.
Do you have any examples at the moment of what you might be doing with some of that money?
Not developed as yet, but I mean, I'll give you an example where I was previously, if that's okay. So there was discussion about public health grant being used to help support the public conveniences in somewhere where I previously worked. So the kind of revenue budget there. So it's basically looking at funding which is non-statutory services, because it's got to be the public health grant criteria, which can support the health outcomes as stated in the public health grant criteria, where general fund is currently being used but could legitimately be substituted by public health funding. But we have not had those detailed discussions yet within Thurrock.
Thank you. And it's not going to have any impact on the work that public health are needing to do with losing this money? It's not going to impact on them? No. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the Corporate O&S Committee? No. Councillor Cockshaw.
Sorry, just as a clarification, if we end up with the fair funding review and there's a change to the grant system for local authorities, where does the do we have any indication of what that happens with the public health grant, or are we just going to try and allocate it out of a pot?
We are waiting to hear what the impact of fair funding, and we should hear something. We might get some policy statements early December, but the reality is we will understand clarity for us when we get our indicative settlement in the third week of December. At the moment, the public health grant, we do not believe is going into the consolidation of grants.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. So just for clarity for me, I wasn't clear when I read this where the saving actually was. It was just an announcement that would receive the grant. But I think you've answered it. You basically, this will offset expenditure from the general fund. Thank you. Okay, so the next saving is ASCH 032026. That's Councillor Hooper again.
Thank you, Chair. This is basically strengthening our re-enablement work. We have been very successful in that in recent times. So we're looking to strengthen that by using technology to enable people to be more independent. And again, we'll be helping staff who carry out the assessments to understand what we could be using to enable us to use the re-enablement team. Also, as people come out of hospital, we'll be able to put that technology into place, and that will reduce the cost to us. So we're looking for a saving of £834,559. If you want to ask the same question, that's been modelled on the current approach that we are taking.
Thank you. Councillor Rigby, did you have a question on that saving proposal?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so my first question is a breakdown more on the savings, if you've got one, because at the moment the only things that are costed in the report are the 2 salaries and a tech cost of 25,000. So do you have any, could you give us any indication of where the rest of the figure comes from, please?
Sorry, the majority of the saving council will come from the arrangement model. So the arrangement based on what we're achieving at the moment, and one of the key things here is to increase our capacity to undertake a higher percentage of people going through the arrangement service. That's where the vast majority of this saving will be achieved from. There is a key element around the tech-enabled care element. That requires further work, but to give you a kind of a flavour of what we're talking about and why it fits in here. At the moment, if you're at home, in a home care situation, you may get a pendant alarm system as your tech-enabled care to notify if you have a fall. It kind of keeps you in the home to an extent because that's where the pendant features. We want to move to a more person-centred approach for older people, so we're looking at wearables you could wear. So when you go out, there'll be, if anything happens or you're at high risk, then that would be an alarm. So it helps to support your independence and hopefully therefore your general well-being. For working-age adults with a learning disability, we're looking to expand the Brain in a Hand, which is a software tool which on your phone, which helps to promote the independence of people with a mild to moderate learning disability. So it's expanding existing things and looking at new technologies, bed sensors, so that when you get out of bed in the middle of the night, because you may want to go to the toilet, the light comes on in your room, less likely to have a trip. And end up in hospital. So there's those kind of things. We've not done the modelling on all those bits, but you'll appreciate the market is evolving at a fast pace, and so we're looking at being innovative in how we can take on for those opportunities. But the key bit will be through the arrangement model.
Thank you. Yes, I do appreciate the benefits of the reablement and the tech scheme. The second question goes back to the staff. Similar to the CHC issue, they're two highly paid roles. Again, there might be recruitment issues, although I do see you have put a note there that you might do a secondment plan and then retrain their sort of replacements. So how do you think you will proceed with that? Is that going to be your favoured option, or are you going to try and look to recruit new staff first?
We'd probably look for an expression of interest internally, because if there are staff that are capable in this space who would like to look at that, then that's an option. But if we don't have staff who have the skills that we need to bring in to deliver this, then we need to have that option open to bring in the people that have those skills so they can come in and train the staff that we have.
Again, with the recruitment issue, are you confident, as in the previous example, that you can recruit to those roles? And what's the justification for 2 members? Do you think that would be sufficient level of staff, or what's the calculation for the staffing levels there?
It's modelled on the number of staff we have, the market, how we want to take forward the training and the pace we want to operate to get this in. So we think that's enough. That's the capacity required to deliver to the scale of the workforce we have that need to be trained and supported in this approach.
So with the tech, I do think it's brilliant. You gave some good examples there, but there will be some staff and some residents, users, that will be resistant to technology, either because they're scared of it or perhaps they don't understand. How will you negate that? And also, I know there is an internet club, isn't there? Libraries that are training residents. I understand, I had a look today that there are 3 in Grays where residents can go and learn to use technology. I think that may well come under a different department than health, but will you be liaising with them about maybe increasing that? Because if we're going to be using a lot of tech, we do need to ensure that people know how to use it.
In short, yes.
Yes to increasing the training in the libraries.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to sound. 20 years ago, I've been in this game a long time. 20 years ago, there was legitimacy to saying lots of old people didn't understand the internet and things like that. The world has moved on a lot. Now then, there is still a certain number, proportion of people, not just older people, but people with other protected characteristics who have those challenges. But lots of people...
Sorry, could I just interject? Yeah. Far be it for me to interrupt and be rude, but let's remain focused. We're not discussing a particular service here. We're looking at savings, and the temptation with these things is always to go off and start looking at the service itself. That's why I said if there are members of ONS committees or chairs or vice chairs who want to look at this in depth, bring it to your committees. But the actual service itself, how it's going to operate, how it's going to meet the needs of residents, I think that is a debate for another day. If we can look, what we're looking at is the saving, whether we think it's realistic, whether it's one we as a committee have a particular objection to or make a recommendation to Cabinet in relation to. So if we can stick to the actual saving itself and try and not stray into the service and how the service is going to be delivered, I think that will make for a much more efficient evening if we can. Does that answer, in a roundabout way, does that answer your question?
I was merely just trying to clarify that there's no point installing a service if people won't use it, and that is part of why we're looking at this saving of this plan. So that was why I was asking those questions. And another question that does relate to the saving and the cost is how you're going to identify the need and put the investment into the users that need it the most.
I get your question. As someone who had a background in health and social care myself and has used technology in the past, people often against use of technology, including staff that support people, that if we train and support people the right way and show them how the benefits of technology, it tends to, most of the time it works reasonably well. We are talking to people all the time, and the feedback tends to be really, really positive when we look at this issue.
Thank you. And has the performance tracker already started to show the savings as well? Yeah.
I'm going to move on from this saving. I appreciate there might be some more questions, but I'm moving on because we do have to.
Can I ask about the Better Care Fund, if that's okay?
Is this something you could perhaps ask at your committee?
Well, it is to do with the funding.
We'll allow this the final question, but if we could be brief, because we haven't even opened it up to corporate members yet.
Okay, I do feel these are important. I wouldn't be asking.
They are, but they probably, as I said, we can't take each item and ask a myriad of questions. We need to sort of stick to the actual integrity of the saving, and if there are wider questions,
so this
it sits better in your committee.
About the Better Care Fund, it does say that it is anticipated availability of resource via the Better Care Funds. Obviously, we do need to know that that will be coming in. When will you get a clarification on that you've got that funding?
It meets the criteria for the Better Care Fund, so I think that's pretty secure that we'll be able to fund it through the Better Care Fund.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do corporate members have any questions on this? No. Councillor Abbas.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. Just a concern and a clarification. On your both previous proposals and on these ones, it seems like the only option you have explored is hiring 2 people. When you and then we know what the future of this council is after 2 years. So are you suggesting the existing staff has no expertise to deliver those savings, and you are just relying on these 2 staff for each saving who will suddenly come from somewhere and deliver those savings?
These people coming in, with the 2 people we're looking to recruit, a large part of their brief is to train the wider staff group so we can deliver this. We're currently not in a position to do that.
Thank you. No further questions on this saving. Okay, the last one then is ASCH 04 2026. Councillor Hooper, your final one.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Right. Basically, we've carried out a budget review. Year on year, we seem to be having a saving on the health and social care budget. We saved last year £950,000, and the proposal this year is we adjust that budget, so we actually contribute that towards the savings.
Councillor Rigby, do you have any questions on this one?
I do, thank you, Chair. So do you feel that the rebasing, it could risk underfunding areas that could face increased demand, and pressures could increase once budget is reduced? And from the figures going out from the outrun, say 24-25, and Q1 25-26, for example, in mental health, they have exceeded budget in all those times, and the chances are that that is going to continue in an upward trend. How do you think any impact on the rebasing of budget, and what contingencies have you got in place if things such as the mental health demand continue to increase?
So we have explained in our quarterly monitoring reports that after the underspend at the outturn last year, we are doing a process of thoroughly reviewing all directorate budgets to see where we can remove budget if directorates continue to underspend. We have done that thoroughly in adult services, and this year, even when we remove that budget, the directorate are still providing services within their budget. We had provided for growth in the current year budget for demand pressures across adults. We are not calling down that growth in this year. We're using an alternative funding stream, but there is still that growth available if service demand pressures do increase and that can't be managed.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for you, Councillor Rigby?
No. May I just clarify that adult social care does come in again under PAN organisation? Will the questions be asked at that point on those?
Yes. Okay. Councillor Muldowney.
Can I just check that given at our pre-meeting that we had to establish our lines of inquiries and how we were going to approach this, we were under the understanding that we would all be able to ask individual questions on any saving, actually, and that was only changed today at the last minute. Well, I wasn't aware of that, so I do have questions to ask. I will try and keep them to a minimum, but can I say that, am I going to be able to ask those questions or not?
As I said at the start of the meeting, I would prefer for questions to have gone through the chair and vice chair, but I accept there's been some miscommunication along the way, and that probably hasn't allowed you to prepare for that. So, in the spirit of openness, I will take questions, but it would have been better if they went through the chair or vice chair. Just, I mean, we're four savings in, and already nearly an hour of the meeting has gone. So that if people have a question, you are scrutiny members, you are here to scrutinise. So if it is a question you think really is pertinent, needs to be asked to hear, and can't be taken back to your committee, I will allow it. So if you've got a question,
thank you. I'll keep them to a minimum. I don't have any more questions to ask at the present time.
Thank you. So on that last saving proposal, then, are there any questions or comments from corporate members? No? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hooper. So we've heard the savings proposals for adults and health. There's questions, I think there's concerns, but there's no recommendations that I'm hearing from the Corporate O&S Committee. So I think it's fair to say that, notwithstanding that they probably will need some more attention and focus to make sure they're viable, we are not recommending that that they're not taken forward. So the committee is, I think the Corporate Overviewing Committee is saying that, from our perspective, Cabinet should take them forward. So we now look at the saving proposals in children's services, and that is Councillor Hartstein. So the first one is CS 012026.
Thank you, Chair.
Excuse me, Chair, would you mind saying the page as well? For some unknown reason, myself and the Vice Chair, we can't see numbers that you're referring to. So would you mind doing page numbers?
This one is on page 23.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. We're looking here at the first case is to bring in 300,000, and it's bringing a saving by continuation of the procurement process for home-to-school transport. Just to outline for ONS, we've already brought in a saving of 1.127 million over 24-25 and 25-26, and so we're looking at bringing another 300,000 in the next financial year. And just in case people were concerned, it's just to clarify, it's not about cutting school transport or reducing our numbers. Obviously, if a young person has an entitlement to SEN transport, they will have that transport put in place. It's about changing the procurement system or continuing with the new procurement system. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson and Councillor Byrne as Chair and Vice Chair and Chair of Children's ONS Committee. Do you have any questions on this proposal? Yep, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much, Chair. We're really looking for confirmation that these ad hoc routes have been tested and their compliance within the statutory home to school duties. And if they are, which I'm sure you're going to say yes, is it likely to change those journey times for the children with SEND? And secondly, what mitigations, if anything, are in place if those suppliers were to fail to deliver or suddenly put their prices up? Please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just clarifying the length of contracts. It's a 4-year contract they're tied into. And obviously, if there's any concerns that have been raised, we would go back and continue to have a conversation with them. And in terms of the timings, obviously, some of the routes may potentially, which has happened in the past, but it's not in terms of breaking any regulations or anything. So we have made sure we've covered all of that. Thank you.
Did you want to come back on that?
Mitigations in place in case the prices shoot up or they fail to deliver?
As I say, yeah, we're tied into the contract for 4 years, so.
Councillor Byrne, did you have a question on this one?
No, but I just, while we're on it, I want to go along with what Sarah said. None of my questions are related to children's. Most of my questions are going to Councillor Holloway. So I didn't realise that we was kind of could only ask questions on certain subjects. I've gone through the whole budget, so if I wasted hours and hours and hours looking through it.
Well, I don't think you have, because as I said to Councillor Muldowney, that is how I would have preferred it to have been done, but the memo obviously didn't land. So if you have got a question and you think it is one that has to be asked here, I'm not going to say, unless we're getting near midnight, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to let people raise questions, because obviously there's been some miscommunication. So if you've got a question you think is very pertinent and needs to be asked here, I will take it. So have no fear. Do corporate members have any questions on this proposal? Nope. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the next savings proposal, which is CS 02 2026, and that's on page 24.
Thank you, Chair. We're looking at bringing in a £300,000 saving here on housing for young people that the council has a responsibility for. And this business case will be looking at working closely with housing to ensure that our young people have the correct type of housing to meet their needs. And just obviously, just to give an example there, we're looking at young people that have no option but to remain in supported accommodation post-18, which obviously is more expensive and doesn't meet the needs of them in order to be able to secure independent accommodation, and then obviously prevents other young people from entering that type of accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson. Councillor Byrne, do you have any questions? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. This mentions factors of people with no recourse to public funds. Are you aware of if there are any particular factors contributing to why this increased number? And if so, how's that being managed, or are the increases being managed?
Thank you. Obviously, the local authority has a statutory duty to look after the children, so they have a statutory duty in terms of children in need for the families there. Obviously, at the moment, we are seeing that our families with no recourse to public funds are, sorry, getting the acronym right there, it is, they're being placed in nightly lets at the moment, and obviously our expertise is within education and children's social care, so we're looking at working with housing, which is where the expertise is. So that's how we're going to reduce the cost from that one, and working with the people that know what they're doing. Not that I'm saying that we don't know what we're doing there. Just thought I'd clarify that.
Councillor Johnson.
Yep. Thanks very much, Councillor. Yeah, so the caseload is being managed between you and housing, which is great. But are the council working with private landlords to try and get some more suitable properties? And if so, would that affect what support might be available to these young people?
Yes, we are. We are looking to work with private landlords as well, yes.
Okay, is that it for this one? Yep. Any questions from members of the Corporate ONS Committee? No? Okay. No. So can I just ask a few questions on this? Again, this is another one where I wasn't entirely clear where exactly the savings coming from. It doesn't seem very tangible to me. It just looks like we're going to sort of look at alternative means of housing for certain groups of people. Can you just give us a bit more flavour as to where exactly those savings are going to come from? What's going to change for us to realise those savings?
Yep, certainly. Yep, I'll start. Yep. Obviously, the young people that are placed in the supported accommodation are really very costly placements, and they are suitable for the young people when they need them under 18. But obviously, it is a cheaper option to place young people once they reach the age where they no longer need to be in the supported accommodation post 18. It is better for them as well in terms of their independence to be placed in HMOs is what we're looking at there. So that's where the savings being brought in, and it is highlighted there on the top of page 25 that in order to bring in that saving we're looking at 95% occupancy in terms of the HMOs.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair.
Did you want to come back on that?
I mean, I think Councillor Hartstein's answered that really well, but it's just to say that, you know, the supported accommodation can cost anywhere between £800 and £1,200 a week. So when young people are ready for independent living, it's much better for them and for us if we can move them into that, because actually it doesn't cost that amount of money, and also our young people can claim housing benefits and other things that they're entitled to claim that they can't do in supported accommodation. So in terms of the tangible savings is if you have, we've got some properties that we will turn into HMOs, so that means that actually there's a group of young people that will start to learn to live independently, and we don't have the supported arrangements that they need when they're under 18 and under 19 for some of these young people.
Thank you. I understand that care leavers have very complex needs, and many of them have been through trauma. But what focus is there on ensuring that care leavers are essentially self-sufficient? I mean, it sounds like we might sort of engineer children leaving care to go onto the benefit system and say, this is your destiny, you're leaving care, go and claim benefits. Obviously, as I said, there will be care leavers with very complex needs, and there's a very good reason why they'll need that support. But what emphasis do we put on ensuring that care leavers are able to, where they can, provide for themselves?
So none of the young people would be suggested for independent living and or HMO living if they weren't at that level that they could do that. So although we say post 18, some of these young people might be 20, might be 21, might be 22. It's at the age that they are ready, and they will all have had social workers and support staff and PAs who work constantly with them to prepare them for independence. So none of these young people, it's not us saying you're now 18, you must move into an independent situation. That's not what we do. So this is aimed at those young people who are ready to move on, but we might not have the accommodation ready for them at the point that they're ready to move on. So we're making sure that we do have that, and we work with our housing colleagues to put in place those options for them. So this isn't about moving on young people who are not ready to move on.
Thank you. And in relation to those who have no recourse to public funds, essentially we're talking about people who, by their immigration status, can't claim benefits or have recourse to public funds. How do we profile those people when, given the amount of small boats that are rocking up across the English Channel, that's not exactly a static number, is it? How on earth do we profile for people in that category when it's increasing at a rate of knots?
These are not asylum seekers. This is not linked to asylum seekers. This is completely different.
So who are they then? Because why would they have no recourse to public funds if they weren't precluded by their immigration status?
As I say, it's about their immigration status. It's not asylum seekers.
So these are quite often people who've come to this country legitimately, if you like, and they're living here. And then there's been a change in a family circumstance, which means it's invariably a female and a mother of children who finds themselves in a position where they are separated or are no longer with the person they came to this country to be with. But in themselves, they don't have a right to claim benefits or funds. Because they have children, it means that the children's needs come under Section 17 of the Children Act, which means we have a duty, every council has a duty, to make sure that the children are not effectively street homeless and that their needs are being met whilst their immigration status is being resolved. So whilst that's going on, the council has a responsibility to house those families.
Essentially, they're people who are here unlawfully or without leave to remain. Okay, thank you. And just an assurance, this isn't directly related to saving, but I do have a concern that this could lead to the proliferation of HMOs, which are controversial. A very short answer, because it's not, you know, I've said to the committee we should focus on the saving, but an assurance, this isn't going to lead to the proliferation of HMOs, which are very, very controversial.
No, that's not the intention. So we will be limited in the numbers because we would rather our young people and our families got access to, is it private rented or other rented properties as other families do. But this is about trying to address a need that we've got here, and it's actually quite expensive.
Yeah, I do understand it's a difficult conundrum. There's no easy fix to it. Thank you. Councillor Hartstein, did you want to come in?
Sorry, I was just going to follow up on that and just to clarify that it really is about making sure that the care leavers are in the appropriate accommodation that suits their needs at that moment, at that stage in their life.
Yeah, I do understand that, but it's been brought here as a saving. It's not about, and it's not been presented to us as a service improvement, it's a saving. So obviously it's that element that I think we need to probe. CS 022026 is the next saving. I think that's on page 26.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, this one is bringing in a saving of 800,000, and this is within children's social care. So we're looking here at the transformation of the operating model. So we are looking at reviewing and modelling of the children's social care service and the structure and bringing it in line with the wellbeing bill that's coming through. Looking at reducing costs by working to prevent children with requiring a statutory service with early intervention and a focus on best possible outcomes for children and families within the budget available. And as I say, it's just working within the Families First vision, making sure we've got best outcomes for all our children and families. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. This is a huge saving, and I have to be honest, I've read it several times and I still don't know where the meat is on the bone. I'm not going to say I don't understand it, but there are a lot of things here that I don't think are being made very, very clear. You've only got a certain amount you can write in here anyway, but once this is implemented over a certain timeline or whatever, could those changes disrupt or care relationships with families? And is it possible that this is going to lead to maybe job losses? But more than anything else, I wonder if you could just give a little bit more meat about where this 800,000 is coming from, please.
Yep, certainly. So 200,000 of it will be coming from the emergency duty team. It's the changing of the operational model for the out-of-hours duty care. We've piloted it already and can see that the new service delivery model that we put in place works. So this year we're fully confident to be embedding that. So that's where 200,000 is coming from. And just to say, in terms of that, in terms of the out-of-hours, it's operating. We're operating differently, but we're still offering the same service to our young people. So there won't be a loss of the offer to our young people. And the other 600,000 is looking at redesigning the social care service, as we talked about, in line with the new legislation. And here we're looking at combining some roles when people are leaving, we're not replacing, but we are definitely not anticipating at the moment making people redundant or any job losses or anything like that. But it's just to clarify as well what you were saying about the potential for making sure we're keeping young people safe. We are confident that yes, we can still, we will continue to keep people safe and we will continue to deliver good services. So we are confident on that front. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, and thanks for that. And as I said, it's a huge amount of money and it's a great saving. But I do think at some point I'd like this to come back to the ONS committee with just a bigger report that we can sit down and discuss further, because I just don't think we've got the time in here to go through it. Thank you.
Councillor Byrne, did you have a question? Any other member of the Corporate ONS Committee? Okay. I mean, I think from my view, Councillor Johnson has hit the nail on the head. I absolutely think this is one that should come back to your committee for. It is a very, very large saving. It wasn't clear to me exactly where the saving was. And just something that Councillor Hartstein said there kind of set an alarm bell ringing. This is being presented as a saving through earlier intervention, but under that there seems to be some cuts to posts, and it could be, who knows, if we delve a little deeper, some cuts to services as well. I'm not saying that is necessarily a bad thing, but it's been presented as a saving for intervention, whereas a little bit of picking there by Councillor Johnson has revealed that actually there's a bit more to it. So absolutely, I think it's one that your committee should look at. And I think, for us as a committee, Corporate ONS, are we happy to recommend that be taken back to the relevant committee? Yep, thank you very much. Any other questions on that one? No? Okay, so moving on to the next saving, which is CS 03 2026, and that is on page 28. Yes, 28. Councillor Hartstein.
Thank you, Chair. We're looking at saving here of 100,000 from the Education General Fund, and we're looking at bringing in or reviewing all of the services that the education team provides through the General Fund. We're looking at the same service model of transformation to children's social care, and what we're really honing down on now is looking at the areas within the education service where we provide work that's not statutory duties, and obviously we're making sure that we're looking to make sure we're not offering services that are not statutory. And again, talking about the idea of when we move into LGR, we're looking at identifying potential things that we can stop doing that are not our statutory duties. But just to clarify, obviously the savings quite small there in terms of 100,000, but the education budget within General Fund is very small anyway, because most of it's through the DSG. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Chair. I don't actually have any questions, but I just think that anything that we don't have to, or not statutorily have to offer, should be looked at. And once again, I think there's enough detail on there for me to know what's going on, and I think on the rest of my committee as well. Thank you.
Any questions from other members? Councillor Cockshaw.
Just as a curiosity to get to the 100,000 figure, what has been identified then so far, or have we just picked 100,000 as a target to get to?
No, yes, certainly. I was just going to say, Sheila's going to come in after, but just to say, it is going to be a difficult one that we're looking for this. We are going to, I will acknowledge this is going to be a difficult find because there are such few services that we do offer anyway at the moment, but I think Sheila might be coming in on the next.
Yeah, as I say, we have offered up savings as everyone else has had to, in line with the position we find ourselves in. In this particular part of the service, we have already made savings here, and what we're looking at is in some areas we may be still delivering some things to the academies that are not statutory. We're looking at things in admissions and in areas like that. But we haven't completely nailed that bit down yet. But that's the sort of work that we're looking at.
Thank you. To answer your question, are there any other questions? No. Just a quick one from me. I get the concept, and we absolutely should, across the board, be looking at the services that we provide to see whether they're statutory or discretionary. But this is being presented as you're going to begin a review. Bear in mind, we're only proposing a review. How can we be confident that there are that level of savings there? Would it not have been better to have done some of that review and then brought the saving forward? The proposal is basically a review rather than this is what we're going to do to realise that saving.
So we always look at our services and we're reviewing our services. So we do believe that there are savings still to be made. But in this region, we don't think there'll be any further savings in this part. So we are confident that we'll be able to deliver that 100k, but we're still working on exactly where we're going to get that from in the service. But we do know that it is there.
Okay, could they not have been put in the proposal so there was a bit more sort of something tangible for us to... what we're looking at is just we're going to have a review and save 100,000, but from what you said, you've got some idea where those savings will come from. It would have helped us, I think, if we'd had some indication of where we're looking at, because potentially it will be service cuts in this case, albeit they'll be discretionary. It would have been helpful, I think, to know what you're looking at.
Sure.
But, okay, thank you. I think that brings to an end the children's savings. My script's got a bit out of sync with the agenda, so according to this, we've still got some more savings in that area, but we actually haven't. So we're now on to corporate services, and we are looking at FIN 01 2026, which is on page 29, and that is Councillor Maurice Cook.
Thank you. So whilst we continue to explore every opportunity that's available to us in addressing staffing needs, it's really important to recognise that overtime should not be used as a default solution to fill gaps. Overtime should remain a tool for exceptional circumstances and not a routine response to operational challenges. To be absolutely clear, this proposal does not seek to remove or reduce current overtime rates. Although it's worth noting that many of our rates are currently out of alignment with those currently offered by other authorities across Essex. Instead, the focus is on reviewing current usage patterns, identifying more sustainable and cost-effective solutions. For example, within the vulnerable persons team, the call centre operates till 6 p.m, while many staff contracts ended at 5, resulting in an hour of paid overtime. With the recent amalgamation of teams, this coverage is now achieved without the need of overtime. To put this into context, we're looking to save approximately 7.5% over the course of a year. We're encouraging a proactive approach to workforce planning, including monitoring forward plans and trends to anticipate demand and adjust staffing levels accordingly, considering additional recruitment where appropriate to reduce the resilience on voluntary overtime for business as usual operations, and trying to build more team flexibility, with all teams expected to be able to scale up or down by approximately 5% to meet challenging service needs. This approach supports a more resilient, efficient and financially sustainable workforce model, while ensuring that service continuity and quality for our residents, and the trade unions have been informed of this.
Thank you. Are there any questions from corporate OLS members? Councillor Cockshaw.
Oh, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair. Just particularly what services perhaps rely more on overtime, just so we get a gist of where is the biggest change going to be?
So currently the highest spend in overtime is in adult social care, with place running second and corporate services running third.
Sorry, do you want to come back? And on particular then on place, where do you know the particular services in particular? Are we saying bins in terms of, I'm seeing the executive director nod, just saying, so it's a case that, are we looking at changing bin routes then as a result? Is there anything knock on, or are we just saying we're no longer doing these hours?
No, it's basically looking at are the options to have overtime, or is it possible that it might be a more cost-effective model to recruit an additional person or persons? Because obviously, if most of the rates are at time and a half, then you are able to get 2 for the price of 3 in effect. So it's really just drilling down into those, what is appropriate, what isn't.
Happy with that? Are there any other questions on that item, on that proposal? Nope. Okay, so moving on to the next proposal, COR 022026. I have Councillor Hartstein for that, but judging by her reaction, it's not her proposal at all. Is it Councillor Holloway? This is the out-of-hours noise nuisance. Councillor Heath. Okay. Well, it begins with H. I have a feeling that you might not be the only person who's wrongly listed against this saving, so there might be a few more faces dropping in a moment, but Councillor Heath.
Thanks, Chair. So this is a saving of £40,000. The proposal is to stop providing an out-of-hours public protection service for the Friday, Saturday 9 o'clock till 2 a.m. window. That service typically covers urgent environmental health, nuisance licensing, public nuisance matters that arise overnight during the Friday to Saturday 9 till 2 a.m. out-of-hours window and requires council intervention. Removing these hours will reduce the council's financial pressure as this is conducted through overtime and standby payments.
Okay. Again, I think probably things have gone a bit awry here because it is listed as a corporate services saving, but I think it probably sits more with place. So I'll offer it over to Councillor Jones to ask any questions that he's got.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask a question on the formal one, but Councillor Coxall took my thunder, but there you go. It was, but anyway, thank you very much, and thank you for your words there. I just wonder, what is Council going to put in place with the removal of the out-of-hours nuisance team? And also I'm concerned because this one may affect, we are just in the process of, should we say, engaging a phone number for out-of-hours dust issues. So all in all, if you're going to take away a nuisance team, when we proposed to put in a phone number for the dust thing, so what are we going to put in its place? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. So the dust is a different service altogether, so that wouldn't be covered under this service. What the council will do, the calls will still be made to the council, but they will be picked up on Monday at 9 o'clock. The service will still run Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, as it does do now, and those calls will be picked up and looked at then.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Jones?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So in effect, someone will call and then someone's going to turn up next week. They're not going to actually turn up when the occasion's happening, when someone phones up and says, we've got all these issues with the disco going on and keeping us up to 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. You're going to report it and they're going to turn up next week. So no, our service. Thank you.
What will happen, I mean, people, you know, they can phone the police, use other services. if there is an issue, an ongoing issue, things can be put in place so the service can attend. Say if we know that somebody's going to having parties every Friday night and that's an ongoing issue, then officers can attend just for that. But no, it will just be looked at on the Monday.
Any questions from corporate members? Councillor Anderson, Councillor Cockshaw.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I do just echo Councillor Jones's concerns about this particular saving. In my mind, is similar to the one that was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, insofar as for the relatively low saving that we're looking at, £40,000, the effect on the community, I think there's a discrepancy there. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not as ubiquitous in my inbox as housing or bins, but I know this service is quite well used. I've had residents get in touch with me, I've directed them to it, and it is a really well-used service, so I'm really concerned about this particular proposal. The question I had, though, was just a quick clarification one. I think the officers serve abatement notices when they attend events, noise nuisance events under this service. I've never come across those before, so if someone pays a fine as a result of an abatement notice, does it go back into central government's coffers or does it come back to us?
For the answer to the question, we will have to come back to you on that. But I can tell you that in 24-25, there were 627 calls made to the out-of-hours service. Some of those would have been about the same incident, because we can have 15-20 calls about the same noise incident. There was only 16 abatement notices issued during those times, and I believe that 4 went for prosecution.
Yeah, I would be interested to know the answer to the question, though, and I think this is one that needs a bit more thinking, Chair.
Yes, fine, I can get back to you on that.
Councillor Cockshaw. Okay, Councillor Panjala, then Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I have a question about that, like how many caseworks we received through using this out of office hours, and also by stopping these services, then who will going to take responsibility about the local residents' issues?
Sorry, Councillor, could you just repeat the first part of your question?
Like in the past, how many caseworks we received using these out of office hours services from the local residents, and stopping these 40,000 and out of office hours services, then who will going to take responsibility about the local residents' issues? Because I have got few caseworks out of office hours, and council I got a very good support, and they have taken on time and they tackled the issue. So that's the reason I'm asking this question. Thank you.
So, as I said, in 24-25, there were 627 calls to the out-of-hours service, but a lot of those, some of those would have been for the same incident, so we can have 15-20 calls for the same incident. If it is stopped, then residents can go to the police, you know, whichever service that they feel is most appropriate, so the police, NHS 111, and they can call into the council, but as I say, it won't get picked up until the Monday.
Can I just add to that? So in cases where you report casework into the council via members' inquiries, that will still be picked up by the noise team. The reduction here, and it's accepted this is a reduction in service to deliver a saving, but that work would be picked up within normal working hours. But as Councillor Heath has identified before, if there are repeated complaints about similar incidents, parties every Friday night in a particular place, or other disruption on a regular basis, then the team can focus on that and potentially undertake ad hoc overtime to enforce against those particular incidents. What we're moving from is or proposing a move from to deliver the savings, is doing that on every Friday and Saturday night, but also bank holiday Mondays as well. But it would be a much more targeted service, so your casework could be picked up in that way, and as would other intelligence coming in from other agencies or from community forums and the like. And just to clarify, with the police, if there is evidence of criminality, then they can take enforcement action as well.
Councillor Fletcher, did you want to come in next?
Thanks, Chair. Really just a bit of an observation. I think I get, the concern around where people are getting, a serious problem with noise issues. But in my experience, personally, as a ward councillor, these things tend to be, they're very rarely something that comes out of nowhere. It's not a burst boiler type of situation. It does tend to be around patterns, around, people, by the time people are ringing in or talking to their councillor, it's because it keeps happening or it's happening. So as long as there is still going to be a willingness to deal with these situations, the fact that somebody comes around the same night, I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is, are we actually going to demonstrate that we're still responding and that we're still taking noise abatement issues seriously? I think that's probably, to actual, to residents, going to be more important than the fact that somebody turns up the same evening.
Thank you. Yeah, it will still be taken seriously, and as I say, they will be monitoring so that if, there are calls for a lot of the same incidents, and if there are ongoing incidents, then something can be put in place and that can be visited out of hours while it's happening. Okay, thank you.
Right, final question from Councillor Jackie Maney.
Thanks, Chair. Did you say 627 calls? In what was that period?
2024 to 25.
So you're saying 15 could be the same person? Yeah, so we're still looking at full...
Sorry, no, it won't be the same person. It would be about the same incident.
The same incident. So that's still 40 separate incidents though, isn't it? That's still 40 separate incidents.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
That's still a lot. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Byrne, did you want to quickly ask a question?
Yes, please. Yeah, well, statutory noise team. We have a statutory duty to deal with nuisance. Cutting the teams on Friday nights, Saturday nights, Sunday nights, the times they're most needed, it doesn't really make any sense to me. The most logical thing is to change the shift pattern to cover the peak demands and perhaps trimming that on Tuesday to Thursday. We could even see a bigger saving from that. Well, simple thing to me is do a shift change to address peak teams. We're going Monday to Friday 9 till 5 when there's no nuisance.
Okay, that is something that we can look at. Okay.
This is a relatively small saving, but it's one of those services which I think instinctively, it tugs on all our heartstrings, because as ward councillors, we know that residents do use this service. It's a cut to a service. The idea that there'll still be investigated. How do you serve a noise abatement notice after the event? You can't. Calling NHS 111, if anybody's watching this, please never do that. To recommend to residents that you call NHS 111 over an illegal party or music from a licensed premises that's causing antisocial behaviour is absolutely not good advice at all. And anyone who's been a councillor for any time knows perfectly well that if you call the police or try to contact the police about noise nuisance, they instantly say it's for the council. Councillor Byrne has raised a question I was going to raise. I'm quite sure this service could be maintained with some adjustments to shift patterns. There's no need to cut it. And we heard at the start of this meeting when the planned part night lighting, that was on a whim removed because it was apparently an insignificant saving. Well, this is an insignificant saving. I do not believe you cannot find £40,000 from other areas. And if you want us to look through the savings that you've rejected, I'm sure members here will be able to find it for you, but we're not privy to that information. I think to cut this service is a completely retrograde step, and no one's going to be fooled that they'll still be investigated. You can't investigate something after the event. You can't serve a notice for something that is no longer happening. So this will lead to people having to endure antisocial behaviour with very little recourse. And it obviously will need the committee's vote on this, but I would propose that Cabinet relook at this and desperately try and find this. It's a paltry saving that can be found from somewhere else. We've seen it already. A saving was pulled tonight because it was apparently insignificant and could be easily found somewhere else. So I'm proposing that we recommend that Cabinet relook at this saving and try and find that £40,000 from somewhere else, or simply look at rejigging the shift pattern. Is that agreed? Members of the committee agreed with that? Thank you very much. So the next saving is COR/03 2026. And I have Councillor Heath.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a saving for another 40,000 and is proposed as a result of a review of the information governance service. So the service has been moved to legal and governance, and this was completed in October 25, apart from the records management officer post, which has remained within IT. So a number of processes within the service are very manual, time-consuming and inefficient. For example, subject access requests, page-by-page manual redaction of names or information that cannot be disclosed undertaken by members of the team. So the ways of working review will be undertaken, including consideration of digital tools and following that consideration of restructure to deliver services.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of Corporate ONS? Councillor Cockshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, so this leads to a deletion of, are we leading to one redundancy, or have we already got a vacancy that's within the team that we're deleting?
There's currently no fixed way of be delivered, but we estimate that a figure of 40,000 can be delivered. Could be by a number of different means through that. It's not specified to a particular post.
Just only saying that the end of the description says resulting in deletion of an existing grade G post. So it's specified here, but all
that's an out-of-date reference, so we apologise for that to members. My apologies.
Does that answer your question? Yeah. Are there any questions from non-corporate ONS members? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. For such a small saving, the last paragraph about risks scares the life out of me, because it mentions less good data protection measures could result in risk of breach. Does that mean that you believe there could be less good data protection here?
Obviously, in any risk assessment, we have to identify what the risks are and then work out what the mitigations are. One of the advantages and one of the main reasons we put the service into legal and governance is it then is managed under the head of legal services and other senior lawyers who can actually strengthen the data protection and information governance awareness and technical skill, whereas at the moment it's in IT where it doesn't have that, shall we say, wraparound care and support from the rest of the team. So we actually think whilst the particular service can be looked at for efficiencies, and as identified by Councillor Heath, some of those efficiencies are simply about ways of working rather than necessarily cutting the skills in the team. And in fact, what we want the team to be doing is focusing on the more complex aspects of data protection and information governance and not redacting manually documents within the service.
Thank you. Apologies. Are there any other questions on this item? No? Okay. So we're moving on to the finance saving proposals. And the first one is FIN 01 2026 on page 34. Councillor Morris-Cook.
Thank you. So I think it's really pertinent to be really clear about this saving opportunity. We are not proposing that we're raiding the pension fund. It does not affect the benefits that individuals will receive. There is a process which actually takes place every 3 years, which reviews the current pension pots across Essex, and this is a result of this. It has also been validated by the actuary. The local government pension scheme is a defined benefit scheme which guarantees what people receive in their retirement. Whilst a review of the employer contribution rate is considering the strong funding position, it has allowed a reduction in the amount of money that the council will pay into the scheme. There is no impact on the benefits that individuals will receive. The council's pension scheme is part of the Essex Pension Fund that is run by Essex County Council, who are the administrative authority. It is the pension fund who are saying that we can safely lower the contribution rate and will not impact on people's pensions which are guaranteed, which is allowing us obviously to protect our residents and our employees as well as our ex-employees. We are looking at the art of the possible to see if we can increase the current proposal of 1.513 million. Happy to take questions.
Any questions from corporate owners members? Councillor Cockshaw.
Thank you, Chair, and forgive the stupid question. I'll be the. In terms of when we say there's no effect on the end benefit, obviously, are we taking a financial? Or is the Essex Pension Fund taking a financial view that if we reduce down 2%, that by the end of the period they'll get that 6% difference, whatever it's over the 3 years to the next review, the end amount of money they actually get in their pension is the same, or I don't understand pension finance, okay, but I'm just curious of the wording of that to get to the end.
Let me try and explain it, and I'll probably make it 10 times worse, okay? So every 3 years, there is a complete review done of the pension fund, okay, right across Essex. Is it sufficient for what is needed within the pot to support the demand on it? It has come out that we are in excess, okay? Now, when they do the review, they actually also apply so many different scenarios to it, from the sublime to the ridiculous, to make sure that we are being completely risk adverse with this. And as it has, we've been told it can come down, I think it's by 2.5% as the employer contributions, which means that on an annual basis for the next 3 years, we will have a benefit of 1.513 million. So if you look at some of the other authorities that are around the country, some of them are reducing it even further, but we are being sort of risk adverse with it. The next time it will be reviewed will be in 2028. Was that helpful?
No, I get it. So it looks like we've overpaid then into that over the years prior than we have. That's the bit I wanted to get to just to make sure.
I think it's dependent on what the markets have done and what, shall we say, thank you, Essex, for looking after it as well as you, because we can now have 1.513 million back each year for the next 3 years.
Councillor Fletcher, did you indicate?
To be honest, Chair, I think that's answered my question, so I'm fine.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Byrne, Councillor Cecil first, as he's a corporate member, and then Councillor Byrne.
Yes, I've got a comment to make. This time we've got a reduction in 2028 when we have an increase, because it will be purely on the state of the stock exchange where the money is invested. What will we be doing then?
Really depends on the outturn of the review that's done in 3 years' time. And it has been, when it's gone back in the past, it's gone up and down. We are, in fact, in a benefit situation, and long may that continue.
Thank you. Councillor Burton.
Yes, so just think about pensions. Back in just after the millennium, lots of companies had pension holidays where they didn't contribute, and we're suffering now. So do we actually do we look at history and say, because like COVID has messed up a lot of pension funds, we took everything that's booming under the Tories, but super time, so we all had 2 or 3 years pension holiday. So it's easy to say everything's fine now and but history shows that we fall over time and time again. So it does worry me a lot.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's similar to what I said before, when before we're told we can do this, it has gone through so many scenarios. And obviously, because of what happened during COVID and history, I think there is a real risk adverse. Because I think if I'm speaking out of turn, I apologise, but I have had it been told to me that Kensington and Chelsea have not got to actually put any money into theirs. But clearly we've got a reduction of 2.5%.
Any further comments or questions? No. I mean, this is a bit of an odd one because I think having looked at so many budget papers over the years, seeing something like this on there instantly sort of leaves us scratching our head, because it's just any talk of reducing contributions to pension funds instantly sets alarm bells ringing. But you've explained it well, and I think you've allayed a lot of concerns. And I don't think as a committee, well, I'm not detecting that we're necessarily saying we're against it, but I think it would still be helpful, and quick discussion with the Vice Chair, it would be helpful if at the next Corporate Owners Committee we could have a little bit more explanation around this, just so I can try and get our head around it. And the question I've got, because it's something that can go up as much as it goes down, we're not essentially, it's fair to say this it's a huge saving, but it's a temporary saving. And could it then present in a future year, or when there's a next review, could it present as a pressure on the budget? Could you just give some clarification around that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know for the next 3 years until the next triennial review that takes place in 2028, if things carry on as they do, we should be in a very similar situation. But, I'd love to be able to see in the future, but I can't. So I think we make hay while the sun shines, if that's the right terminology.
Well, quite, yeah. I mean, why would you not? It's a huge saving. But okay, so we're not. There's no recommendation as such to Cabinet, but I think that we agreed that it would be helpful if we could have a briefing paper at the next meeting, just to have some further clarification around that. Thank you. So
We'll do it in the January one, if that's okay.
I think our next meeting is it?
December. Or is it
December,
one in
I think,
December?
isn't it?
Pardon?
For the here and now, I don't think that, we don't need to start getting diaries out, but I think for the here and now, next meeting, we'll have a briefing, if that's okay. Very short briefing. Thank you. Next saving, is that it for the... Oh yeah, FIN 02 2026 on page 35.
It's me again.
That's the Essential Living Fund.
Thank you. So this is the transition from the Essential Living Fund to the Crisis and Resilience Fund. So the Household Support Fund was introduced in October 2021 and was funded by the Department for Work and Pensions. This has played a vital role in supporting our vulnerable residents. Due to the previous uncertainty surrounding the continuation of the Household Support Fund, it was necessary to maintain the Essential Living Fund as a contingency, which was funded through the General Fund. However, Department of Work and Pensions have now confirmed the introduction of a new Crisis and Resilience Fund, which will commence in April 2026. This coincides with the closure of the Household Support Fund. This development provides clarity and allows us to remove the remaining £331,425, not P, from the Essential Living Fund, enabling us to prioritise and prepare for the implementation of the Crisis Resilience Fund. This transition ensures continued support for our residents in need while aligning our financial planning with national funding changes.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on that from members? Councillor Muldowney?
Thank you. Yeah, the Essential Living Fund does provide essential support for some of our most vulnerable residents, including sort of our local winter fuel payment last year. So my question is, why is this being treated as a saving before the CRF allocation is known? From what I can see here, the CRF allocation is not expected to be at the same level as the household support grant.
Yes, thank you. Because the Essential Living Fund was actually covered by the Household Support Fund, we had that as a contingency if we didn't have sufficient household support fund. While we've still got the household support fund, we don't need the Essential Living Fund, which was always supported from the general fund, which is why we're removing it.
Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure. So we are still going to carry on having a fund which is going to support residents?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, so realistically, we had the Essential Living Fund as a contingency, but really we use the Household Support Fund. It is the Household Support Fund that is going and being replaced by the Crisis and Resilience Fund, which is basically going to have the same parameters as the Household Support Fund did. So we've still got that budget there, and it's the Essential Living Fund budget that we're taking back that was funded by the General Fund.
Is this just replacement of one fund by another fund?
Yes.
So my question really is, as it says, what are the key risks? That the Crisis and Resilience Fund is not expected at this level, which was the household support grant, 2,282,000,000. So can all of this be claimed as a saving if we don't know what the new allocation is going to be?
So
That's my
whilst I
question.
understand, we don't know the exact figures, but we've had sort of an idea that's come along that said for the whole of the UK what it's going to be, which is very similar to what it was for the Housing Support Fund, which I think we got 2.1 million of. So we're expecting a very similar figure.
I'd recommend further clarity once the figures are confirmed.
Okay, that would, if there was further clarity on that, I mean, I'm assuming you're proposing that clarity came back to a corporate ONS committee?
I think that's probably where it would naturally sit.
These corporate ONS, so turning to corporate members, is this something that you think we'd like to have brought back to us for further scrutiny, or are we satisfied with the explanation? We're happy with I have to, yeah, I do tend to agree. I think I'm satisfied with the explanation. So, yeah. So we'll move on now. That brings us on to the place savings, and quite a few of them there are too. The first one starts on page 37, and it is PLA 01 2026. And Councillor Holloway, I think this is for you to introduce. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think councillors have thoroughly read their agendas and all of these papers, so I'm very happy to take them as read and start taking questions.
Nope, we're not taking them on block, especially not place, because there's so many of them. As I said at the start of the meeting, we'll work through them individually. I think these are the savings which I think members would be most concerned about being
I wasn't
frontline
suggesting taking them on block, just by them individually. But if people want for me to introduce them, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, we'll
but
carry
I
on
think
as we started. If you could introduce them individually, thank you.
No problem. This report is advanced route optimisation using software to reduce fuel consumption and staff hours, covering clean and green commercial waste, Euro bins and flats.
Councillor Jones, any questions?
Thank you very much, Chair. Are the council looking to change the waste collection routes, and where are the savings going to come from using the Bartek system? Because it's been around for a while.
Yep, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there will be a slight adjustment to the routes in the optimisation. Obviously, as the routes are developed, as we learn things, as there are new housing developments, we learn better routes, faster routes that can actually make us more efficient and actually can make us speed up, collect more quicker, reduce the times that the lorries are on the road, and as the report says, reduce things like payment for lorries and things like that. So yes.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. We've had the Bartek system for some time now, but I don't know why it hasn't been used, or we haven't got. Have we got any data for when it's been used before? Because I'm just wondering, where other authorities have they used this? Has it worked out good? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's always important to continually optimise routes. I think when I was a cabinet member for this portfolio, a long while ago when I first became a councillor, the routes hadn't been looked at for I think about 10 years, and we don't want to let that happen because it leads to a service that isn't regularly reviewed. It leads to a disparity in areas and collections. So this is a system that we've used before, and actually I think it's something that we all should be always regularly doing, making sure that the service is as efficient as possible. So yes, it's a system we've used before and we'll continue to use to ensure that the route optimisation is always at its best.
No, I mean, they changed over to the sweeping system. That was about eight years ago. So how will success be measured? For example, mileage reduction, staff hours and fuel use, how will it be measured?
Well, I mean, we'll know how much we're spending on fuel because, at the end of the month, we'll know how much fuel is left in the lorries. Similarly, with regards to team hours, where teams are returning within their fulfilled, contracted hours, we know that it's working. If their teams are coming back too early, we know that there's some give in that route, and therefore we can readjust that route. If the route is, if teams are coming back after their contracted hours, we know that that's a very large route, and we need to optimise that to ensure staff are working within their contracted hours.
Yeah, well, thank you. And will the council obviously engage with residents and give them good time that if you're going to change routes or alter them?
100%. I know that it is a really big deal for when collection days are changing. It does make a massive difference when that happens. So there will be an enormous amount of time. If there is any impact whatsoever, this might be a tweaking to the service. While it's not a full overhaul of the service, so hopefully there'll be minimal changes. But where that goes out, there'll be very clear communication. So if it happens, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next save, I assume there's no questions from corporate members. No, thank you.
Vice Chair.
Okay, final question on this one.
Thanks, Chair. Ignored as always.
As if.
So what's the, Councillor Holloway, what's the projected one-off investment for changing it all?
The saving for this is 25,000 against this item.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next saving is on page 39, PLA 02-2026. It's Councillor Holloway again.
Absolutely. This proposal reviews our spend on external contractors within the Clean and Green team, covering weeding, ad hoc grounds, maintenance, etc.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Jackie Maney, do you have any questions on this before we open it up?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm concerned about this one. I'm concerned about the proposed overall cuts to the clean and green services. I think this will affect the residents. I mean, for example, cuts to the weeding and general tidying and the maintenance of the borough. my area, you know, looked very, very terrible in the summer, overgrown grass, weeds on the pavement. Do you think this will make matters worse by reducing frontline staff? And, you know, what's the savings on this? 20,000? And you're looking at not doing weeding, cleaning?
Yes, the saving is 20,000. There shouldn't be any noticeable difference on the state of the borough. Having a lovely looking borough is a top priority. Having pride in how the borough looks and the cleanliness and tidiness of the borough is extremely important. So it's just about realigning kind of when we're using the resources of external contractors. And we have a lot of those services in-house now. So it's drawing on more of our existing resource rather than going out. So will be closely monitored. If I saw anything or we have any reported reduction in service and people notice something, we'll definitely pick that up. But we shouldn't be seeing that. We have those resources in-house now to compensate.
I hope you do, because for the savings we're looking at £20,000, and the state of the area that I called council out 1 or 2 times to attend, you know, realistically, because, you know, weeding hadn't been done, and now we're going to reduce the service again. I just, you know, I'm not sure about this one.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Holloway?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, any rearrangement of the service, we will keep a very, very close eye on it. As the leader and the chief executive set out at the beginning of the meeting, it does, 20,000 might seem a lot, but all of these elements do add up. And we really are at a stage now where we are kind of shaving off elements of where we can try and work better, where we can bring those services in-house because of what's happened over with the team in the last couple of years. So as I said, I don't want to see a borough that is overrun by weeds either. I'll keep a very close eye on it, but these savings do have to be made, whether or not they're 20,000 or 200,000, they must be made.
Okay, are there any questions from corporate members? No, okay, so moving on to the next proposal, page 41. PLA 03 2026, and that's Councillor Holloway again.
Thank you, Chair. This is a further structural reorganisation and reduction of up to 15 full-time roles across clean and green and housing, achieving a substantial annual savings cost of £305,000.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, Councillor Maney, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just concerned that reducing our labour by 15 people, you know, is a big chunk of people taken away from frontline services. I'm very concerned. Once again, it's the cleaning for the borough, making it look tidy. A service, as far as I'm concerned, being taken away. 15 frontline staff is a big loss.
Do you want to come back on that?
Absolutely. This is, again, about a reorganisation and a streamlining through management and redeployment, not necessarily kind of compulsory redundancy. But there has been a disconnect between the cleanliness and the cleaning team that do the borough and the separation of the cleaning team that cover housing. And that has been, you know, setting examples where we kind of go along, the road is clean, and then it stops because it sits in kind of housing land, and that needs to stop. But this is about bringing teams together so they're working more collaboratively together and not having disjointed service that leads to a borough that's cleaning some place and not cleaning others. I do acknowledge, again, a concern, but I think there will be an actual improvement in what people see because an individual is going to be responsible for one whole area, and they'll be in that area instead of being kind of put around the borough. So I think that you'll be surprised about the way that the reorganisation will impact in a more positive way. But as ever, we will keep a very close eye on it. And if there are any complaints, please come straight away. Don't let them kind of get bad. Please keep an eye on it as local councillors. I do recognise the concern, but I assure you this is a very interesting and forward-thinking rearrangement of our cleaning service.
Councillor Maney.
Thanks for that, Councillor. Just for clarity, are you confident that the council can meet its statutory duties?
Absolutely, yes. I have to be confident about these proposals going forward because, you know, residents, you know, it's one of their highest priorities. We all know as individual councillors that it's so, so important, and the teams know how important this rollout is. So yes, we're confident we'll meet those statutory duties. Thank you.
Are there any questions from corporate members or any other members? No? Okay. Just an observation. I think this is quite a radical change in terms of how we do things. I think with hindsight, it would have been helpful if it came before Place ONS well before now. I mean, it's I don't know, it might be something you want to look at, but I think it is a fundamental change to how we do things, and I think it should probably have been presented to Place before now, but we are where we are. There's no further questions. We do need to make savings, and we have to, you know, take your assurance that we won't see any fundamental difference. Obviously, it's for members to judge on that in due course, but if there's no further comments, we'll move on to the next saving. Okay, so we're on page 43, and that is PLA 04-2026, and Councillor Holloway again.
Thank you again, Chair. This proposal delivers the government's simpler recycling reforms by introducing separate household collections for paper and cardboard.
Councillor Jones.
What savings have we got with this one? Sorry.
It's 79,000 per year in additional revenue.
Okay, are there any for Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Chair. So in my mind, the biggest risk for this particular saving is obviously when it comes to recyclable materials, the income that we're going to get from that is going to fluctuate based on global commodity markets. The proposal does recognise that in the key risk section, and it says that in order to mitigate this, we'll have flexible contractual arrangements to respond to market changes. What does that mean in practice? How is that helping us mitigate against the up and down of the market?
I'll hand this over to the Director, Claire.
Hi, Councillor Anderson. We currently have built into our disposal contracts a low, medium and high cost to take account of global fluctuations in the market. So this is based on a low cost for a disposal rate for this type of material. So we've based it on the lower end.
Thank you. And do we ever receive, we won't ever receive like lower than the low end?
No.
No?
No, we're based it on the lower end.
Councillor Cockshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Just a practical question in terms of when we talk about containers. Would we explore perhaps something Southend had previously with just a box or to give out, or are we expecting another bin? I'm just mindful some areas of the borough it gets to a point where it's bin, that it's getting very hard for people to store these without them actually impacting on the highway.
Yes, of course. We'll look, and sometimes we'll base. Oh, sorry. Go on. Sorry. Yes, we will. Yeah, we'll base it on sort of each individual area, and if it means that we may need to go to sacks or look at individual types of containers, we will do. We need to be very mindful now as we move into more separation of waste. Actually, how we're going to collect, how we're going to make it more street attractive, but also how we're going to ensure that we can collect the waste more effectively as well.
Thank you, Chair. Do you mind if a couple more? Thank you for that. Just in mindful that I know in Southend they've got that the issue is you can't walk down now around Kersal, Milton, or the centre of the high street, city centre now because you can't actually get on the pavement. So that's something I'm mindful of here. Particularly then where we look at the budget for this, it comes in at 27. So it's nothing. We're not going to see any impact on the budget we are setting this year. Just to clarify.
That's correct.
And then final one, we're around LGR. I'm just very mindful we're taking a grant to purchase containers. In terms of when we have a new authority, some parts of the borough or whatever new authority we have will have internal done internally. Other areas may have contractors. I'm just thinking, are we going to be spending a grant money or any sort of taxpayers' money only to have it completely changed again in 2-3 years' time?
I think that is a question that's going to have to be investigated by those looking at, when LGR comes in. I will say, however, that there will have to be a decision made about, which council system works best and which service works best. And that could be Thurrock's. If we have an excellent system, ideally other areas will adopt our system. And then, we shouldn't always look at ours having to change. That said, the government want this to come in and have given us the money to do it. So no matter what, we have to start improving the recycling rates. Because no matter what authority we're part of, we will still have to do this no matter what. But when it comes to the containers, I think, again, that's the detail for LGR discussions.
Councillor Fox.
Just pick it up on containers for the residents. What's going to be the on cost for another container for this recycling?
We have got a grant from government of 200,000 to provide any new containers, so it's provided for by the grant.
Thank you. No further questions. Councillor Byrne, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. When you're saying cardboard, and I guess you're talking printed cartons, which is an absolute minefield. How are we going to get the resident to know what they can class as cardboard? Because there's contamination, there's wet waste, there's dry waste. Nobody knows about that. We put in things like we can't put Tetra cartons in a bin. Not one resident, apart from who's actually been in print, knows what a Tetra carton is. So how are we going to ensure that we're just not having to get a tip and having to segregate, and it costs us more and more money? How are we going to actually educate people that this can go in there, that can't? Anything with a window can't go in because it's not recyclable. 9 out of 10 cartons come with that. And so people are not going to peel off the window, are they? So it's going to be, sounds great, but is it going to really happen? I can't see it.
It's such an important question, and actually it leads on a little bit to the next kind of element and saving, which is the behavioural change programme. There's a couple of suggestions here that cover recycling, and it is so important. This is a main priority for me to make sure that we increase our recycling rates. Currently we have one of the lowest recycling rates in the UK, and that's just not acceptable. But it is about educating and making it easier for people to recycle, and actually, as you say, it won't work if people don't know what to do, and if it is a big effort and a big fuss with multiple bins and multiple things to do, it becomes more and more difficult. So that is part of the next saving. It is essential, as you say, because otherwise it just won't work. And it really has to work, because the savings that can be made through better recycling are enormous. And actually, it's a no-brainer. If residents can save money, we can make so much money for the council by just, recycling their waste properly. So I know I've jumped ahead there, Chair, apologies, but yes, Councillor Byrne, you make an excellent question.
Thank you. So that brings us on, I think, to the next saving on page 45. PLA 05 2026.
Yes, seamlessly. So this programme focuses on changing how residents think and act about recycling and waste disposal. It's fully funded by 215 of PERP grant and aims to divert up to 10% of recycled materials from general waste, saving around 350,000 per year through increased household recycling rates.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Maney, do you want to go first? Any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we definitely have to improve our recycling. We've always been down there, right on the bottom numbers for many years. So if we can do something that mitigates that. I'm just concerned about fatigue for residents with changing and more things coming in. So how are we going to engage with residents to make sure that they fully understand what is going to be required of them to help us to get better figures? Thank you.
I mean, it has to be a huge campaign. Obviously, in the past, we've put up lists of what should go in and what shouldn't go in, and that's not been effective. So I think the answer is that we're going to try everything. We want to try, all avenues of what we haven't tried before, because people aren't doing it and aren't getting it. So the usual, things on social media, of course we'll do, but there has to be more than that. And that's why the group is going to be set up. There's going to be a team set up to do this that will look at everything. And, it probably is one for the committee. Actually, I really welcome any ideas from members who might, come up with things, whether or not we get schools involved, because children always come home from school with their parents. It could be anything and everything, because we have to get this right. We have to make this saving, and this is a number one priority for me personally. I want to see those recycling rates up.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree. We've got to involve community groups, schools, and really educate what needs to be done. Thank you.
Questions from corporate members? Councillor Fletcher.
Thanks, Chair. Just a very quick one. A couple of years ago, when a number of us were looking at the same issue, there was a pilot that went on with a couple of estates, which I'm told went very well. I'm wondering if there's something in there about, because I don't know if that pilot ever got rolled out more widely, but that seemed, I have to admit to you, I don't know exactly what they did, but that did seem to get a much better response than we've had elsewhere.
We'll go back and have a look at that, but we'll be looking at what other councils do. Some of those that are at the top of the list, why are they at the top of the list? Is it because they're a bit more strict? Do we have to be more strict with residents? Obviously, we would make sure that, an education campaign comes in first, but I think we're not underestimating how important this is. As you said, it's been looked at previously, but now we have the money and the resources to look at it properly. It's something I'll be keeping a very, very, very close eye on. We must make this saving, but it's just good for the environment as well. It's good for residents, it's good for the environment, it's good for the council. It's just a win-win-win situation here. And again, as I say, please do, as members, please come up with ideas, because I know the team will appreciate it, because residents really need to know. I know I stand there myself and think, is this going in the recycling? Is this going here? And with adding more bins, that choice will only get more difficult. So, as I said, it is a very big priority.
Thank you, Councillor Maney.
Thank you. How will you fund ongoing engagement in 26-27?
Well, I'm hoping a lot of the groundwork will be laid next year and into the following year. I mean, the hope is that once people know what they're doing and it becomes a habit, we won't need to be, reminding people. And I think that hopefully the government won't add any more elements to the recycling, no more bins, because again, I live on one of those narrow streets that you kind of can't walk past when all of the bins are out. So I think by this point, it's about getting residents into a habit. When we see the recycling rates up, that residents see the benefit, hopefully it will just be a touch point each year rather than the need for this ongoing large sustained campaign. But I think as individual councillors and I as the portfolio, once we've kind of pushed that campaign, it will be on us to kind of keep promoting it so that people don't fall back into bad habits.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Byrne.
Sorry. I've been banging the recycled drum since 2019, since I've become, many people know I'm obsessed with recycling, but the first committee I joined in 2019, that was the recycling group. The members were really keen on that, but we were let down seriously by the directors who just paid lip service to it. In the end, we all resigned because it was embarrassing. And all the years that followed, I've had, we're going to do this, we're going to start a team for this, and we never do. So we may be behind it. All that I really need to know, are the senior leadership team fully on board with all things recycling? Because we've been let down by directors. Don't matter how much we bang the drum, if they're not on board with it, then this falls over. So have we got full commitment from everybody?
Thank you, Councillor. We 100% do. As I said, this is a personal priority, and I hope that you and other councillors will know that I always push on something that is very important and close to my own heart. So I will be, this is a very strong metric for me to be keeping a very, very close eye on. And directors are on board with that. They understand the potential for the saving now. And again, yes, you're right. It's a shame that it has taken so long to get there, but we are here now. And I know there'll be close scrutiny from you, Councillor, around how we're doing over the coming months. But I think it is a priority for the council, directors, chief executive, everybody.
Thank you. I think we've given this one a good airing, but just I'll throw my 2 pence in. Once upon a time, we used to get recycling rates by ward. I'm told that's not possible anymore, but it used to make for interesting reading. Diligent, caring people of Alsett and Little Thurrock there'd be very high recycling rates from those areas where people perhaps have a bit more pride, and then there's Tilbury. And the recycling rates from those kind of areas were simply shocking. I'd like to think that, people are, not recycling because they just don't know. But the reality is they just can't be bothered in a lot of cases. That's the reality of it. People, you can educate as much as... I've lost count of the amount of education campaigns that this council has run over the years, and it just doesn't hit home in some areas. I think there's a lot riding on this saving proposal. But my question really is, when you've done the education and people are throwing the leaflets in the bin as soon as they come through the door, and I'm sorry to be negative, but that is literally what happens. You can't educate some people into this when they just don't care. What is the next step in terms of enforcement? Does the council have powers to enforce, and is that the next step if our recycling rates don't? Because I mean, it's controversial, but I'm happy to sit here now and say that I would entirely endorse a more enforcement if we believe people are just willfully not recycling.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've got more faith in our residents than maybe you have. I do think that understanding the demographics of each ward is important. I think if you looked at the demographics in one of the areas that you named, it might be an older generation that have more time on their hands maybe, whereas other areas, they're a bit busier, they've got young children, it's hard, they're busier and they've got lots to do. I think lots of people have pride in where they live, and I think that's across the borough. So I do have faith in residents, but it's about making the system easy for people to understand. And I don't think it is just about education and just about leaflets. Of course, there is more to it. We need to think about the containers, we need to think about the instructions, how easy it is, how clear the card is, and so on and so forth. So I have got positive hope for this, but obviously, I may be proved wrong, but I don't think I will be. When it comes to enforcement, what we can do is if someone's put something in the wrong bin, we can tag it and not collect it. And obviously that is an inconvenience to residents. I wouldn't like at this point to talk about, any other enforcement, because I just think we should talk about that if and when we get there, and that can maybe be addressed with Place Committee. But I am very willing as well to be firm if there are some houses or areas to help residents along, to guide them. But again, that guidance, if we tagged a bin that had the wrong thing in, it's about saying, lots of residents often say, I don't know what I put in that was wrong. So again, the onus is on us to get this right, not just through a leaflet that might get thrown in one of the bins, but to look outside the box. So I'm going to keep positive, Councillor Maney, and let's see where we are in 6 to 12 months.
Well, I'm glad you're positive. I'm going on the experience rather than positive. And the last note, I think if you compare the employment rates in Alsett to Tilbury, I do push back on the idea that people in Alsett have suddenly got lots of time on their hands compared to people in Tilbury. But moving on, because I think we've done that one to death, we all welcome it, we hope it works. PLA 06-2026 is Councillor Hurrell, and I think that's on page 47.
It's on now. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to talk briefly about the proposed £995,000 savings within homelessness. Temporary accommodation continues to be one of the biggest financial pressures for the Council. Over recent years, the number of households in temporary accommodation has steadily increased, and the current year's budget profile assumes an increase of around 15 additional households in TA each month. That level of growth simply isn't sustainable, financially or or operationally. Our focus is now on stabilising the position and then reducing the number of households in TA through a combination of better prevention, faster move on and improved access to private rented accommodation. In practical terms, this means preventing more cases early on so fewer people reach crisis point, helping more households into private rented homes rather than temporary accommodation, and reducing the average length of stay in temporary accommodation through focused casework and stronger partnerships. I'm confident this saving will be achieved because it's based on live data, a realistic delivery plan and momentum we're already seeing. And I'm equally confident that as our transformation continues, the wider financial benefits, while improving outcomes for residents, will go well beyond this initial £995,000. Thank you. Any questions, please?
Thank you. Before we move on to questions, I'm just mindful we're getting near to 9:30, and I've moved that the committee vote to extend standing orders. We do need to propose it. We can't suspend them until conclusion of business. We have to do it for a defined period. So I'm proposing we suspend until 10:30. Hopefully we'll be finished well before then, but it's better to overextend than find we run out of time. So that's not an excuse to sort of draw the questions out. But should we extend till 10:30? You in agreement? Thank you. So, Councillor Jones, do you have any questions? Or Councillor Maney, any questions on this interesting proposal?
Thank you, Chair. I've noticed you say Councillor Maney as well, so, you know, you're keeping in her good books because you're in trouble. But, yeah, I mean, this is a lot of savings in an overstretched department. It really is, and we know that at the moment, out of all the departments that save money, this is the one that the expenditure has been the most. So, you know, I'm looking at, I just wonder, could you give me an example of how the homelessness service, the temporary accommodation and housing support costs be achieved? Because there's little detail as to see how we can achieve that. Thank you, Councillor Hurrell.
Yep, sure. The savings will be achieved. It's based on reducing spend on temporary accommodation. There's some figures here, so I'll go a bit slower. By slowing and then reversing the current growth trend. The calculation uses our average nightly cost of £67 per night. So £1 million equates to around 14,925 bed nights, or roughly 41 households, in nicely paid accommodation for a full year. By stabilising the number of placements and then steadily reducing them through prevention and faster move on, we can achieve the level of reduction in cost.
Thank you, Councillor Hurrell. Will any additional staffing or prevention resources be required up front?
Sorry, additional staffing?
Will we need any additional staffing?
Yeah, there is no additional staffing. We're just reorganising the current service.
Did you have any further questions on that? Any other members have any questions on this item? No? Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. May I ask, has modular housing been incorporated into these savings at all?
No, they haven't, not yet, no.
Thank you. Councillor Maldoni.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a comment because it is quite a big saving. I mean, I think this is a well-considered proposal supported by an officer with a strong track record. I think it's right to focus on reducing TA costs and improving pathways. So I think in principle this is the right direction. However, given the dependency on external market conditions, demand pressures and corporate transformation capacity, I think Scrutiny should seek further assurance on modelling, phasing, risks and contingencies to ensure that this saving is both deliverable and sustainable.
it's already been to place something else already. So, okay.
Any other questions? I mean, did you say this specific proposal has come to place?
The transformation programme has, yes.
Okay. I mean, it's an extraordinary amount of saving in year one. I mean, there is a lack of tangible information, I think, but we have to take it on face value. I mean, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. It's up to the place committee whether they want to re-look at it. I mean, again, I hope it's realised, I really do, but it does seem a very, very ambitious saving in year one. I mean, all I can really ask you again is, can you give us an assurance it will be met? But you know, I think you've said you're confident that it will be. How I'm not sure, but I think again, as a corporate owners committee, I can't see what we can specifically recommend other than invite we can't heap too much on place, bless them, but if they want to look at it, it's a huge saving, but if there's no further questions, I think we have to accept it that you're confident of delivering it.
Yeah, we're very, very confident of overachieving on this. Very confident. So, and hope for more in the future as well. So, but we're very, very confident about this. So.
Thank you, Councillor Harrell. Okay, so moving on, PLA 082026, Councillor Heath, and that is on page 52.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, thank you, Chair. So staff occupation at civic offices on Monday and Fridays is between 20 and 30%, and up to 60% Tuesday to Thursdays. There's a review in place at the moment of the current 5-day cleaning schedule, which is reduced into a 3-day schedule, and with this in place, there will be a saving of £100,000.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Maney, do you have any questions on this?
I think it's sad, Chair, that when you look at these wonderful offices we got here, that realistically they only use between 20 and 30% on the Monday and a Friday, and at most 60% during the week. It just seems a complete waste of an office block. You know, I feel like we can pack ourselves in one side and let the other flog it and make a few quid, but that's just how I feel. But will this affect just the council offices or other council buildings such as the Thameside Theatre or libraries? Thank you.
It won't affect Thameside Theatre. It will affect council offices and anywhere where there is office staff working remotely from there.
So how would the cleanliness be monitored now? Because it's going to be like down to 2 days that's what you're looking at, isn't it?
So it's being reviewed at the moment. It's in place at the moment. So obviously there's a new contract coming into place next financial year. So we've got that time to see whether it's going to work or not. And then it'll just be implemented into the contract or not. But doing it now is creating some savings for this year too.
Councillor Maney.
So can you assure us tonight that the public-facing parts will be cleaned regularly?
Yeah, public-facing parts will be cleaned, and they do checks as well. So you know, it is picked up if they're not, and it will be sorted out. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Can I just clarify, because in response to a question just now, you said that this will affect any premise out of which council staff operate. I'm not sure if they still do regularly or not, but I know in Corringham Library, for example, local area coordinators used to operate out of there. So I just want to make sure that it's just these offices and not other areas.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you for the question. It is just civic offices.
Thank you. No further questions. Councillor Byrne, last question, then we'll move on.
Thank you. Very few staff are in Mondays and Fridays, so the proposal is not to clean on those days. What we say 40% on Pinnacle's fees. On paper, this looks efficient. In reality, is this really just an easy option? So once again, cutting out our low-paid outsourced staff. They're not employed by the council, we know that, but it's still your low-paid staff. While our higher bracket seem to be enjoying extended weekends. That rings alarm bells to me why so many staff are working from home Mondays to Fridays. Just happens to be a Saturday and Sunday in between that. Just reading these pages, I can see much higher savings to be had. The questions are we targeting the wrong end of the scale? We're picking on the floor cleaners when people were obviously having long weekends. There's a bigger saving in there. Don't take a lot of working out, does it?
Yeah, thank you for your question. It is you know, there is a lot higher savings, but, you know, as already been said, we have to look at everything. And if the offices aren't occupied, there's no point in cleaning them when the staff aren't here.
But surely we've got to look at why they're not occupied. I mean, doesn't that extended weekend for the higher paid staff ring any alarm bells where we could make serious cuts? Apart from the cleaning lady who's going to lose 40% of her money. This is a big, big one which you're hiding what's really behind this, and it's wrong on so many levels.
I think, you know, we can all take a view on, you know, whether work from home patterns here are out of kilt or not, but we've got to confine. I'm not saying I'm not sympathetic to what you're saying, Councillor Byrne, but we have to confine, I think, our line of questioning to what is before us. I mean, fine, you know, if we want to propose an alternative, it's within our gift to do that. But I think we need to look at the proposal that's before us, and this is the proposal you've brought before us. I think from my perspective, it does make sense if there's less people coming into the building for whatever reason. Looking at that isn't a separate issue to what is actually happening, and, you know, there's no point cleaning rooms that hasn't had anyone in them. So I think, you know, notwithstanding your points, they're valid. I think I don't personally have an objection to this saving. So are we happy to move on to the next one? Which is PLA 09 2026, and that's Councillor Holloway on page 53.
Thank you, Chair. This proposal is a reduction of cost by reusing old paint rather than paying for its disposal. We'll invest £8,000 in a compliant paint storage container. We can safely expand operations, allowing more paint to be stored, sorted and reused through our partnership with Community Repaint.
Councillor Jones or Councillor Maney, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Should we say the paint reuse centre there, the waste disposal place is always going to need money spent on it up there. It really does. Hopefully this will, you know, be a savings. Could this be extended, do you think, to other do-it-yourself materials and such like? If it's successful, that is.
I will always look at any pilots that will reuse materials, allow us to dispose of materials that don't have an exorbitant cost. So, yeah, where there are pilots, we'd definitely look at it. Why not into other materials? Absolutely. If anyone, again, hears of anything, and I know the staff look very closely at things like this for savings, please do let me know. I think this is a really good example of a successful pilot. And actually, you know, there's so many benefits, not just financial for the council, but for the community, for residents. Yeah, it's a good one.
Councillor Maney, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. What's the initial investment cost at Linford Household Waste and the Recycling Centre, and has it been included in the budget saving proposal?
My director says yes.
Thanks.
Very few words.
Any further questions on this one? Councillor Byrne.
Sorry, I'm going to be the party poop again. In October, I had a meeting at Linford site to discuss the opportunity to supply reusable paint to the likes of community centres, village halls, scout halls, etc. The numbers you are talking about assumes the majority paint comes in is reusable, and it's far from that. There's good reason why paint is taken to the tip. It's not reusable in a lot of ways. I've seen it. Has anyone also looked into the fact that less than a mile down the road we have Thurrock, which is a reusable partnership. They are a registered charity who are less than a mile away from the tip. We are effectively now going into direct competition with a local charity who already do this. So we like, is that good practice? You've got Thurrock actually do this. They sell paint, they sell recycled paint, and we are effectively looking to shut down an income from a charity. Is that going to go down well? It wouldn't go down well with me, for sure.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Councillor Byrne. I wasn't aware of it. I'm very sorry. I will definitely look into this and see what the situation is and whether or not I would never ever want to take any resources away from a charity. So hopefully we can speak about this after and then speak to the charity. Apologies, I wasn't aware of this beforehand. Oh, sorry, my director tells me we're partnered with them already.
We are partnered with them, but they don't come to the site. So we are partnered with them.
Okay, we move on to the next saving, which is PLA 10/2026 on page 55, and that's Councillor Holloway again.
Thank you, Chair. So this is about our commercial waste revenue growth programme. This business case invests in a dedicated commercial waste and recycling sales post to enable us to grow and generate around 143,000 per year in new income.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Maney, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Holloway. There are proposals to recruit a dedicated salesperson to run the commercial waste collection service in Thurrock. What type of salary are we expecting to pay for this post up against the proposed savings? You know, what I'm trying to find out, will this be cost effective? Because you've got a lot of competition out there with other major contractors.
I'm going to hand this over to Claire.
The person's salary?
What I'm after, Claire, is basically you're going to pay a salary. I mean, we're looking at, you know, and then what savings is it going to be up against the salary you're going to pay for this dedicated person? Because this man's going to come in, or person's going to come in, they're going to say, this is the way you need to operate this system. So apart from his salary, he might say he wants equipment. So it's a big setup cost. That's what I'm looking at. He might say you want dedicated lorries, dedicated bins for this type of thing. So, you know, there could be a cost in setting this thing up for the savings that you're going to get in a commercial market that is kind of like overwhelmed. It really is.
The salary that's been proposed is £45,000, and that's currently funded from the Centre Producer Responsibility funding. So that's built into our funding proposal that we're currently working on. So it's self-funded.
So I think we should be then mindful of the setup cost as well. There's going to be other costs.
It's an additional salesperson, so there'll be minimal setup costs.
Equipment and stuff like that, so we need to keep a check on that as well.
It's a salesperson, Councillor Jones, so any additional equipment would come with a cost to any purchaser of our trade commercial waste.
Any other questions? Councillor Anderson?
I don't know if sort of the point Councillor Jones was making was that if this person is really successful and we get a lot more commercial waste, are we going to have to spend money increasing the capacity within our waste disposal system to deal with that new waste, collecting all of that new waste?
They would have to substantially increase the amount of waste that we collect for us to be able to invest any more money. So we've got the capacity already built into the system. We just need the sales.
Councillor Maney, then Councillor Byrne.
Thanks. So how many commercial waste customers does the council currently have?
I'll have to get back to you. Unless you wait for someone to type it through to me, but at the minute I can't tell you.
Councillor Byrne?
Sorry. The suggestion we take on a full-time salesman to boost income sounds appealing. Is that, to me, that's very simplistic and naive. The question we should ask, do we have the management capability and resilience to handle these contracts and demands of a prolific salesman? In my view, the management are nowhere near strong enough to aggressively take on the likes of Biffa and other large companies. Before we commit to a salesman, I would ask the current complaints to be reviewed. From there, you will find there is an institutional mentality with very weak management on site who encourage a blind eye culture that's set deep within. The commercial waste is not robust enough to take on a full-time salesman and a full-time cost. We have to get our act together before you take on a prolific salesman, or it will be a total waste of money. There's so many complaints down there. We could not handle taking on the big boys as we stand.
Do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. And I think it is important to highlight our strengths and our weaknesses. I have got a great deal of faith in the team that has been working over the last couple of years to reform and rededicate itself. We've got very strong managers. We've got a very dedicated team who are trying to do their best under exceptional circumstances. You know, again, repeat the financial strain that the council are under and what our teams have to produce. Trying to find a growth opportunity is really important, and I think whilst we can always improve, we're not going to be tackling those big companies, but we must start acting and investing in things like this and teams like this, because unless we get those sales, we won't have the money to improve the service. So it's important we get the sales. We're going to see how things go with the person in the team that we can get and go from there. Obviously the higher standards are important, but it's really important that we invest in schemes like this.
Do you know why we've recently lost a customer for 16 years because of gross incompetence? You're not looking at, a salesman cannot sell for a business that cannot deliver
I think
service.
that's probably, again, well, just mindful of time, it's probably a very valid point, but not for tonight's meeting. Valid point, but we do have to confine ourselves to looking at the integrity of this proposal. One quick question for me, how have we arrived at this figure? I mean, I applaud any proposal that looks at increase in income. It's easy to cut, but producing an income is something we should champion more often. But again, it's quite a precise figure. How have we arrived at that?
Claire, this one's for you.
I'll just refer to the breakdown that I've received from the team, Councillor Maney, if you give me 1 minute. Talk amongst yourselves. Can I get back to you on that one?
You can, because of the sake of time, but I really do think that's a basic question. Is that kind of answer between an officer and a portfolio holder should be really there at hand. It should be able to answer it pretty quickly. You asking us to accept this income, and then we're being told, well, we're not really sure between us how we're going to do it. But sorry, but that's a red mark, I think, on that one. I mean, again, we can't say as a committee we don't accept it, because really there's no good reason not to. But do we have confidence in it? Let's move on to the next saving, which is PLA 11/2026, Councillor Heath, on page 57.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a saving of £400,000. It's based on the previous 2 years' utilities underspend. Changes to our building management systems have made them more efficient, and billing processes ensure we are paying the correct amount for our energy, and this has led to the savings.
Councillor Jones, is this place? Yeah, it is. Do you have any questions on this one, or Councillor Maney?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Heath. Council will forecast a saving of £400,000 in energy management opportunities relating to alternative building management systems and processes across the Thurrock estate. There is very little detail included in this business case, but a large saving of £400,000 outlined. Can the Cabinet member provide the detail on how this savings can be achieved? Thank you.
I'll have to get back to you on that, if that's okay.
Again, £400,000 saving like that, and we've got to be got back to on the detail. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, last budget setting we needed a light bulb czar to make these savings. Thankfully, Cabinet didn't adopt that proposal. Yet without the light bulb czar, we've saved out 400,000. Well, we've saved a considerable amount of money. I mean, that there is for the size of saving proposed here, the information on this page is woeful. There's a line per box, and it's a huge saving, £400,000, and someone's got to get back to us to explain it.
Well, this is based on the savings that have already happened, so they know that, you know, the officer does know that we can
That's the
make
point.
this saving.
They've happened. What we're asking and what Councillor Jones is asking, they've happened. That's great. We did it without the light bulbs. We didn't need them. It's happened, but the question that Councillor Jones is asking, and I'm asking, where is the confidence that you can realise it again? Because that's if you're telling us that we've already saved £400,000 last year, that's nearly £1 million over 2 years. That is one colossal saving on energy. When there's a war raging in Ukraine and Russia, I mean, we're not saying it's wrong, but it's a realistic question. Huge saving being put before corporate ONS. Justify it to us. And we're being told we'll have to come back to you on it. Can you tell us what evidence you have based that on? How can we as a committee, a corporate ONS committee, how can we have any confidence in that? It's a really reasonable question when it's £400,000. I don't want someone to get back to me. I want someone to be able to tell me how we've arrived at that figure.
Councillor Maney, I can give you a very high-level answer, but I can't give you the actual specifics of how the £400,000 is broken down line by line. So previously in the past, and I think you've alluded to this yourself last year, we weren't very energy efficient. We weren't billing properly. We weren't managing our billing system properly. So over the last year, we've taken the feedback that we received from ONS last year, and we've looked at the way we are actually looking at our bills. So we know that by reviewing our bills and making sure we're checking bills, we're paying bills correctly and on time, which we weren't doing previously. We accept that. We've managed to achieve a high level of savings. So we will continue looking at that over the course of the following year, but also making sure we're paying the correct amount of energy, we're with the correct energy providers, and also making sure that we are looking at alternative uses, alternative ways where we can actually generate grants. We know across the country there are a number of grants available that we can use and pay towards our energy costs, which you haven't been utilising. So there's a number of options, but to get those very broken down specifics, I will have to get back to you, I'm afraid, and I do apologise.
Thank you. I don't think we needed a high level answer. I just think we needed, like with some of the other proposals, just some explanation as to how we're going to get there. But I don't personally have any confidence in this, but you know, I can't, purely from what I've heard and for the lack of information. But again, we have to take what's before us, and I'm mindful of time. One final, Councillor Coxall and Councillor Fletcher, then we have to move on. I'm just mindful of time. We have extended standing orders. Right, see how we go. Councillor Coxall first.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just mindful, obviously, Councillor Maney's picked up on the matter of detail. When I received a briefing, must have been 10 months ago now, regarding this proposal saying we've saved a load of money. I was a bit worried then. It was alluded to me that we'd already spent some of this money on investments into our own estate, and that's what I was told in January. So as I'm saying with Councillor Maney, the figure of 400,000 was banded around then, and we said, oh, we've used some of it to make improvements. I'm just mindful, that's the same figure, and I just don't understand how we've got to there to say that. So was that money never spent and invested in the estate in the first place that we've got, or are we now just keeping that figure completely?
This is a proposed saving for next year, so money would have been reinvested this year, yes. Yeah.
Councillor Fletcher, then Councillor Jones, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Thanks, Chair. Through you, I mean, I was just going to propose, yes, we do need more, or Cabinet will need more information on this. So I was just simply going to propose that we agree that this isn't ready for Cabinet yet, that it needs more detail before it goes to them.
Wholeheartedly agree with that. And as per usual, I rant and you come up with a sensible idea. I do think that is, yeah, absolutely. You know, Cabinet can't surely have any confidence in this either with that level of information. So I think a recommendation would be from us for them to have a look at it and satisfy themselves that it is a legitimate savings proposal. Councillor Jones, quickly, do you want to come back?
Well, it's all I was going to ask was how the energy data be monitored, basically, and reported back to members, following on for what Claire said, that, you know.
Perhaps when Cabinet relook at this and issue a up-to-date proposal on this, that can be factored in. Thank you. PLA 12/20/26 on page 58, and that's Councillor Heath. No, it's Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Chair. There are 3 posts across the Place Directorate that have been vacant for 18 months, which are proposed for deletion: an apprenticed ranger, an arborist, and a cemeteries operative.
Any questions? Councillor Jones, Councillor Maney? Yeah, thank you, Chair. You know, I am concerned, realistically, when we don't have, we let apprenticeships go. You know, whatever it be, apprenticeship ranger. I mean, it's a wonderful job for some people. They really enjoy it. So, what happens when the ranger leaves? We know he's going to be going. Do we take on another ranger? You know, so that, or whereas apprenticeship, he would step up, should we say? So I'm a bit concerned when some of these posts go. Thank you.
I agree. I do think it is sad when we lose any post, and as particularly an apprenticed post, when the current ranger would leave or retire, we would go out to recruitment on that post.
This post isn't on the council website. What I can make of it, you know, so we need to make sure that it's on there, so young people can see. Okay.
Any other questions before we move on? Councillor Maney and Councillor Byrne.
Why has the post been vacant for 18 months? Do we know?
We didn't advertise for the post, you know, due to the financial difficulties of the council. There was an assessment about the work. Could this work be carried out without filling not just this post, but the 3 that I've mentioned? And as I've said previously, the team works incredibly hard under very difficult circumstances, and they have been able to absorb that work whilst we're looking after their capacity and their health and well-being. We unfortunately, you know, haven't recruited to these posts, so they are being removed.
Councillor Byrne, then we'll move on.
Yeah, just looking at this, we haven't paid this out for 18 months. So how is a saving of 34,000 if we'd never paid it the money out? It's not a saving, is it? We're just not paying it. So that is not a saving, is it? It's just we haven't paid it out. So how can you say that's a saving?
Because those posts have been allocated in the budget, but no, they haven't been paid out, but now we're recognising that they're being removed from any proposed budget.
Thank you. So we're looking at PLA 13/20/26. That's Councillor Heath, and we're on page 60. Councillor Heath is shaking her head. Someone tell me who should be presenting it. This is a place saving, so I mean, I'm just following my script, and I've got page 60. We've got 60. Tick-tock, tick-tock. What? The saving that I'm looking at is the cemeteries operative. That's next on my list. You present it how someone has not produced these papers very well at all. So it's up. What I don't want to do with extended standing orders, I don't want to us waste time deliberating. Let's just look at the savings. So whoever's presenting it, present it.
Apologies for any confusion. I'm not sure how the papers are prepared.
You haven't produced the papers. None of it. No members have produced the papers.
Sorry, I did lump the three in together. I'm very happy to take them separately. So if we're looking at the cemeteries operative, removing that post delivers £39,557 saving each year.
Councillor Fletcher.
Just going to suggest if the rationale for all three is the same, and Councillor Holloway did mention the 3 posts, then we've probably had the discussion. I know it's not very clear, and it's not been laid out very clearly. I think we all agree that, but we've effectively said there are 3 posts here that haven't been filled, hasn't had any noticeable effect.
I don't think they have an issue with the saving. I mean, if other people do, fine. But I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I just have a problem with the way it's been presented. Everybody's got different.
Yeah, I think we've all gone.
I don't have any questions
or
comments on it, unless anybody else does. I'm happy to take the savings as they are. Councillor Jones, I suppose I better defer to you. It is a place saving. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. I understand where Councillor Holloway is coming from. These are posts that's been sitting there. Another one, 18 months, was in the, where are we? I think it was cemeteries and then the tree inspector, so that they're not going to fill. Once again, it's a shame, but that's 2 posts that's going, so we understand why you lumped them together. Yeah. I'm happy with that. No worries.
Thank you.
I've got no confidence this is right, but we're apparently on PLA 13/2026 on page 64, and that's Councillor Heath.
Thank you, Chair. So this proposal focuses on increasing rental income across the Council's property portfolio by addressing a backlog of over 300 outstanding rent reviews and lease renewals. These reviews are defined within existing tenancy agreements but have not been implemented in recent years due to capacity pressures and resourcing constraints. And it's a saving of 46,000. No, it's not 468,000. I'm only used to the smaller ones. Thank you.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Main, do you have any questions or comments?
Just a comment, Chair. I think this is long overdue, rent review, so this is most welcome, and it's 468,000 we're looking at in savings. So, yeah, this is acceptable. Thank you.
Councillor Cockshill.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think this is a very reasonable proposal, and I appreciate I've been well briefed previously by the property team on this over the last year, and I know they've done some really good work trying to build this into the budget. Particularly, I think the one concern I have is in social care. Obviously, there was I won't name providers, but there was a provider who had previously had a rent freeze. I would like to say 2018. That I know we've had, I know what's happened, and Claire's shaking and knows exactly where it is. I just want to be very mindful that some providers, we need to make sure that with market fragility, that we don't actually force providers out of the market and actually borrowing costs in other areas and just cost shifting. So I just want to make sure, it's more of a comment really for the team, just to make sure we're aware of those things, that we don't want to just push it on someone else's budget.
Any further questions? Just a question from me. I think one of the proposals the council is taking forward is to dispose of our shopping parades that we own. Will that have a negative impact on this? Presumably, if we sell them, we won't be receiving any rent from them. Has that been factored into this amount?
Yes, it has. Yes.
Thank you. No further questions? Okay, so we'll move on. That brings us on to the panel organisational savings. First one is at page 67, and I think that's Councillor Morris-Cook.
Yep, so I'm doing the next three just for ease. So I just thought it'd be very helpful, and I'm going to speak very quickly because I'm conscious of time, just to give a broad introduction to what we're talking about here, about the roadmap and transformation. So through engagement with our services, it's become very clear that many existing working practices and processes are outdated and could be improved through service review process. Achieving optimal savings will require a balanced approach, combining targeted digital initiatives that deliver high impact with organisation and policy changes that enable a more efficient and effective way of working. The focus must extend beyond processes to the overall activity and the purpose of each service. This principle is reflected in the business cases and should be clearly communicated as our core message. In developing the wider approach to savings, the profiling methodology has been refined to improve buy-in, manage expectations and maximise the overall level of achievable savings. Rather than just attributing savings directly to a specific technology, the approach now adopts a broader transformation lens which can incorporate, multiply and possibly synergise changes affecting the service. So many of the proposed savings will be driven by the adoption of a specific enabling technology. However, not all will rely on new technology solutions. For example, the initial phase of centralisation of business support, some of them do not require new technology. But I just thought it's helpful to set the scene of what we're looking at, because it's a very different way of looking at savings, and it's the way of transforming this council. So the first one is our smarter commissioning. So the creation of a commissioning and procurement hub is to transform how we commission and buy services and achieve better value for money for Thurrock residents. This will be achieved through what we class as a hub and spoke model. The Commissioning and Procurement Hub will hold strategic oversight and accountability for delivering these savings, working closely with services, senior leaders and partners to ensure the targets are met. Savings have been identified over the next 3 years and will be achieved through the commissioning and procurement activities, either led or supported by the hub. So what we're looking at here is where we commission services and we commission new contracts, it's having a central service, a central centre of excellence of how we can go out to the market. With our buying power, we should have a much better return than we do. It's about commercialising the social responsibility that often comes with these contracts. And there is a mixed bag across the council of how we manage our accounts at the moment. How our contracts are managed. So some are very good, some it's a bit piecemeal. So this is really centralising and showing that we are meaning business when we go out to tender for contracts and what we expect in return and getting value for money. So, and it will mean that, so if we're looking at adult social care, we're looking at children's services, we're looking at corporate, we are making sure that we have got the people that know how to do this as sharing their expertise with other directorates. And it will strengthen our system partnerships, ensuring that we can give quality provision and cost effectiveness. So there's going to be clear governance, which there has to be, accountability, which will be led by senior officers, and we'll have a strategic commissioning board, a bit like we're setting up with the capital board, to actually review what's going on with the spend. And it just makes sense to put our excellence in the hub, and then the spoke models will be the individuals back out into the directorates that are doing the contract management, that are reviewing how things are working and how things are playing out and sharing good practice. At the moment, it's been a lot of silo working, which really doesn't work well in the corporate scene. So I think because of time, and I've got another 2 to go, I'll just take any questions. And obviously, if there are more questions, I'm happy to come to corporate and answer them, because obviously I've got another 2 to deliver in 26 minutes.
Thank you. That was a very helpful explanation, actually. That's how it should be done, I think. Are there any questions? Corporate members first. Any questions? No? I'll open it up. Councillor Cockshaw.
There's always one.
No, I always have to have a question.
I know.
I think it's really good because it's something that I know started in adult social care and has come out completely. And I think it's fantastic that we're starting to see that realisation, because I know we've been talking about it since 22 and we're 3 years down the line.
It's a long time coming.
We're finally hearing it's becoming a model. I think it just, given the scale of the change, and it may be something I've proposed to you, Chair, that this is something that corporate keeps its eye on. I think it's something that's going to need to keep coming back.
I would expect no less, to be honest.
Exactly. And
because the value of the prize, I think it would be irresponsible of us not to do that.
I think we've learnt lessons from other contracts being very large, very long in terms of procurement, that I think as a guide, I think it will be good precedence for us as corporate members to actually keep an eye on this.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
I completely agree with that. It not only is it, a very high level saving, it's also one which is going to be protracted. It's not, it's something that's going to have to be reviewed periodically. So yeah, absolutely endorse that.
I would actually ask that it becomes a regular item on your agenda. Please.
We're happy to look at that. We've captured it as a recommendation, so we'll look at how we feed that into the committee. Councillor Massey, Chair of the Audit Committee, did you want to come in and ask a question on this?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. We've seen some, in a similar vein, we've seen some really good systems come through audit, and we've seen some not so good systems. So I'd like to have confidence that this is going to mean that the audit team are not spending more time than they do already auditing different siloed systems, to use your own words, and this is actually going to make their job easier. So it's important.
Absolutely, it's more streamlined, and what we're trying to work to is to be simple to do business with, whether you're an employee working within the corporate teams or whether you're a resident working trying to engage with the council. So what we don't want to do is introduce something that's actually going to cause a block further down or cause more work somewhere else. We're trying to streamline and simplify. So it's a good question.
Thank you. I'll just endorse that the audit are engaged at the start of the process to make sure that they can get the right results that we want to see as members to give us confidence.
I'm happy for you to keep your beady eyes on us.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor. It was good to hear what you said about you don't want to create a block, but you look at this, you get the impression that basically people have been overcharging us for years to come. How confident, years past, how confident are you that we're going to get the upper hand in things like children's services, high-intensity services users? The market is really tough. Do you really think, have you got confidence that we're going to get the upper hand and we can suddenly start calling the shots, which I don't think we've probably done in the past?
Yeah, I don't think it's a question that we've been overcharged. I just don't think that we've probably been tough enough in our negotiations in getting the returns we should do with the size of the contracts that we are actually procuring.
That's great. I want to say, if you've got confidence in that we will be able to do that. Thank you.
Right, we've got Councillor Rigby next, then Councillor Muldowney, and then we'll move on to the next saving.
Thank you, Chair. So similar to Councillor Johnson's points, just to check that we've got assurance in those figures. I also wanted to check because there is one that just says further opportunities in adult services. I know time's of the essence, but I just wanted to check that had been either fully accounted for, and also to check that it hadn't been double counted and had already been...
No, absolutely. And we've probably... They are the trailblazers in what has really started the thinking of this off. So yes, there is a further opportunity. There is no double counting there. But thank you for asking.
Councillor Muldowney.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to beg your indulgence because this is such a big part of the savings proposals and it is cross-cutting. Essentially, the strategic... what we're calling it now, smarter commissioning, is a rebrand of previously unrealised strategic commissioning services. And we are moving from a stage now where we can no longer do many tactical savings. We're moving to a stage where we need to rely on the transformation of the council and the new operating model in order to realise these savings. So we've been told that there is a transformation roadmap on the way. Unfortunately, Scrutiny hasn't had any sign of it. Councillor Worrell did say that it has been through SLT and officer and AD level, but we haven't seen it in any scrutiny committees. So it's important because the next 3 years, underpinning all of these savings, the transformational roadmap is like the instruction booklet that explains what needs to change, when will it happen, who will do it, and how it will save money. So, to put it simply, we're being asked to rely on major cross-council savings without being shown the instructions for how the organisation is supposed to change. If we look back at the previous year's budget savings, the Commission independent savings and transformation savings across the council haven't been realised. There's a 2-year pattern of non-delivery. This was something that was escalated to Commissioner level, and certainly the Commissioners did note in their reports, the last 3, that we were lagging behind on the new operating model and the transformation of the council. So I have.
Could we come to a question, because
yeah,
I'm just mindful of time.
I'm coming to my questions right now. So what I want to know is what has changed since, well, first of all, when are we going to see this transformation roadmap? What has changed since last year that makes delivery of this much larger saving credible when in the past these savings haven't been delivered? How can this saving be delivered when scrutiny has never seen the transformation roadmap? Do we currently have the specialist capacity in commissioning, procurement, analytics and transformation to deliver this? What baseline modelling underpins the 6.52 million figure? Has the Finance Commissioner
I'm so sorry, but I've lost track of what questions to say. Oh, is it? I was going to say I've lost track of how many questions.
The good thing is, this obviously corporate overview scrutiny has already given an undertaking to keep a watchful eye on this on a rolling basis, but I'm going to bring in Dr. Smith because I think he knows where you're going with this and he's going to be able to give a fuller answer.
Chair, I'll try and deal with the core of the questions as I understand it. The difference between now and previous years are severalfold. Firstly, we have more capability in the organisation now, that particularly capability around commercial acumen, so that, as colleagues have said, the council is much more capable of having robust negotiations with both existing contractors or new ones for new procurement, which did not exist in the organisation previously. And the second big change is the roadmap itself, which encompasses all the changes as Councillor Morris Cook set out, has been devised and developed by council officers with support, with external support and advice, but not done by an external organisation. And that change is a consequence of having more capability in the management in the organisation to work this out and plan its implementation. So we're in a much more robust position. And to the final point about the availability of the roadmap, when the whole of council has been briefed and confirms its support for the detail within it, then of course it will be available to be scrutinised by all members. But it's not yet been adopted formally in all its detail by the Cabinet.
Can I ask if there's a timeline for when that will be happening?
Well, broadly speaking, the Cabinet will be asked to support the roadmap at its meeting in December. It will obviously have had discussions in prior to that, which has already happened with the leader and several of the members. But it will be adopted by the Council in December, and therefore from then on it will be available to be properly scrutinised and understood in all its parts.
Thank you for that answer. Just one final question.
Will have to be the final question because we are
Yeah, it is
rapidly
final
running out of
question.
time.
Has the Finance Commissioner assured this saving?
Who wants to respond to that?
Hello, Chair. Thank you for your question. I think I would say that these are still on their journey to financial due diligence as well as part of that process. We will be reviewing them in a lot more detail when we have greater granularity and depth to that. So at this stage we're saying no, but that is across all of the proposals. Again, but recognising the stage we are on that journey. But we will do that work along with the finance team to get some of the evidence base to support that, really looking at the profiling of some of the savings and also the sort of detail that underpins them. But that will come before the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think all that we've heard just, really corroborates why we've already said that, corporate ONS will be looking at this in depth over the next coming months.
Sorry, as this is cross-cutting, can we look at, it coming back to our area as well, because it does include adult services?
This is not the meeting to decide, how it comes back, but absolutely, that's a conversation I'm sure we can have with officers and decide how it comes back through the, the scrutiny process. So should we move on to the next saving, which is
Thank you.
page 69?
So this is the next saving on there, which is an initiative that represents an opportunity to move away from siloed working practices and adopt, in effect, a flow-to-work system. Currently, teams operate within directorates as subject matter experts in their respective fields. Our vision is to create a centralised model that enables flexibility, efficiency and improved service delivery. The key objectives of this during the transition will explore opportunities to analyse the current demand, understand what the demand consists of and assess its relevance, determine whether processes should continue, pause or be redesigned, move towards simpler, cost-efficient and time-saving solutions. For example, the introduction of Power BI in one department reduced reporting time from taking 2 days a month to seconds. And assess functional requirements is identify specific needs across finance, HR, IT, legal and other core areas. And we want to enhance the employee experience through their digital technology, modernise the intranet, which is currently outdated, ensure systems are intuitive, accessible, making day-to-day tasks much easier for our employees. By improving the internal process and leveraging our digital tools, we will create a more efficient, user-friendly environment for our employees. This, in turn, ensures that the residents benefit from faster, more reliable services at every interaction. We have been conservative in our cost-saving approach for this round of cost savings. We know there's a greater opportunity, which will need time and investment in order to release that cash saving. But starting this is a phased approach. We know we're taking a considered approach.
Thank you.
And the saving here is 500,000, sorry.
Yeah. Are there any questions from members, corporate or non-corporate members? No, I think all we can do is welcome this. Again, it's another one that, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. We'll have to see how it pans out, but it's certainly, I think, an encouraging a proposal that we should encourage. So that takes us on to the last proposal.
I've got 12 minutes. Yep. Okay. So this is the redesign of business administration, and the purpose here is an initiative that focuses on the redesign of our business administration services across all directorates. Currently, administration support is delivered within individual directorates, creating often duplication and inefficiencies. By optimising these services and leveraging modern technology, we aim to deliver a model that enhances both the employee experience and the resident experience when interacting with the council. Thurrock is behind the curve in terms of its digital maturity and service modernisation. To remain competitive and deliver our value for money, we must adopt a more integrated, technology-enabled approach to service delivery. There's also a strong focus on streamlining and standardising our work practices to ensure consistent, high-quality outcome. It's worth noting that the majority of the activity is inward-facing rather than customer-focused, and that technology will be introduced in the latter stages of the project. Initially, our work concentrates on reviewing activities across the entire workforce, identifying what can be stopped, what can be delivered more effectively, and how we can adapt our operating model and working practices, what structure will best support the change. Once activities and processes and ways of working have been refined, we will then look to automate and enhance them through the use of digital tools. So we want ease of doing business for residents that simplify interactions and improve accessibility. For employees, it's removing duplication, streamline tasks to create a more efficient working environment. Technology is here as an enabler, and it is not the sole solution. While digital tools are critical, success depends on introducing new ways of working for both frontline and back office teams. Our employee engagement are central to this transformation and will act as our ambassadors for change. The transition will be delivered in phases to minimise the risk and ensure that staff are fully supported through the process. This will end up with improved efficiency, reduced duplication, enhanced digital experience for our residents and employees, and greater value for money through a modernised process and technology adoption.
Thank you. Councillor Abbas, you've indicated you've got a question.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a question particularly on this agenda, but I just have some comments generally on all these. I'm in favour of restructuring the services and making sensible savings to achieve a balanced budget. But by listening to officers and cabinet members, it looks like they just had most of the saving figures printed or a target to achieve without any clarity or actual plans that how they will achieve or deliver these savings. For example, they want to hire more staff for bureaucratic work, but at the same time proposing to cut the key out of our weekend services, which is helpful and a great support to Thurrock residents. And miracle idea of saving 1 million in 1 year.
Have you got a question, Councillor?
It's just a comment.
These are not for debate.
Chair, it's just a comment. It's relating to saving. It's just a comment.
This specific saving?
It's under general saving.
No, as much as, you know,
Chair, by the time I would have finished.
If every member here wanted to get to the end and then have, you know, read a statement of what they think.
It is on
if you have a specific question, then fine. But, you know, we are rapidly running out of time and there are another 3 items on the agenda.
That's fine, Chair.
Thank you. So that is the last saving. Thank you to Cabinet members and officers for presenting us. We do, as I said, we have got another 3 items and very little time. So I'm going to take items 6, 7 and 8 together. They're all, you know, that's the work programme, the action log and the recommendations tracker. Are there any questions or comments from corporate ONS members on any of those items? No? Thank you. Noted. So, in conclusion then, we have 6 recommendations this evening. There's not enough time to read those out. So what I've asked officers to do is to circulate them in writing tomorrow. And obviously if there's any questions or any comments, then obviously please feed that back. But I think, looking at them, I think they have captured them as we've proposed them. So that just leaves me to thank everybody for their attendance tonight. And we look forward to receiving the final budget in due course. Thank you. The meeting is closed at